All right. So, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our first session in the PYF University Guidance Series, Insider's Guide to the Application Process. So, I'm going to first give you a bit of a preview as to why we're doing this. First of all, why we're doing this is we have this amazing person called Fatma Farouk, who approached our education team and said that, hey, why don't we do a series on university applications? And not only did she pitch the idea, but she also took the initiative to make it happen. So she's a co-lead of this program, and we're very grateful for her efforts. It wouldn't be possible without her. So why are we doing this? So the people who are speaking are mostly Pakistanis, but even if they're not Pakistanis, they're young people who've either just started university or they have graduated and they're in the workplace now. They've been through what you are going through right now, the big questions about what do you do after high school, whether you want to go into a career or you just want to explore a particular subject, whatever your interests may be. We understand the different things that you have to think through, and sometimes they're very specific in our community as well, right? They can be generalized, and we can compare ourselves to friends from other communities as well. So our idea was to give you a perspective into the process, not from universities, because we're tired of career fairs where someone is just trying to sell you a program, right? And they're not thinking about what you need in particular. So we've tried to tailor this as much to our student population as much as possible, to your interests. We're going to have different speakers, but I think we have about 8 speakers today in total. So we'll get started shortly. And okay, so in terms of some ground rules for all of our workshops, we have similar rules. It's a safe space, all right? We want people to be able to ask honest questions that they're having. But for asking questions in this session, because we have so many people and a big agenda to go through, we will have space for Q&A after every single speaker. So you can ask them questions specific to their section then. You can also keep dropping questions in the chat box, and we'll come back to them at the end of every section. That's one thing. And so definitely, tell us what you're thinking, share your thoughts to the presentation as well. But just today, put it in the chat box and we'll get to it when there's time for Q&A and conversation. And with that, let's go to the next slide. I think we've already covered the icebreaker a little bit. Oh, first of all, yes. Fatma, is the icebreaker the second slide, or what's the second slide? Okay, yes, the icebreaker. So we just thought while you guys are getting in our Zoom room, we'll start some conversation. And many of you have already responded. We see a lot of students from Pakistan Islamia Higher Secondary, Sharjah, Ajman, see students from English Language School, Pakistan Education Academy. Really, really, really glad that this information has reached you and that you are here with us today. So if you're just gotten here, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box, your name, your grade, your school, and what are some questions you're looking forward to getting answered in this workshop. Right, that's the next one. Fatma, I'm going to hand it over to you, the next 2 slides.
Okay, so basically, we are discussing a lot of different majors. In today's session, we're going to be discussing media, accounting, finance, economics, business, medicine, psychology, also computer science. And we're also going to be talking about a little comparison between computer science and computer engineering. Okay, now these are our speakers for today. And I think they can introduce themselves by unmuting themselves. Aisha, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Aisha Khan. I'm a first-year medical student at Dow Medical College, Karachi.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adil, and I'm a sophomore or second-year student doing my BSc Honors in Economics at Lumps University in Lahore.
Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Ariba, and I'm doing my third-year journalism course at Middlesex University, Dubai.
Omar will be joining us shortly. Osman, go ahead.
Hello, assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Osman, as clearly stated, and I'm first-year computer science student at American University of Sharjah.
As most of you know already, I'm Fatma. I'm studying ACC at PwC's Academy.
Hi, assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Safa Riaz. I'm a final year psychology student studying at Canadian University, Dubai.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Tahreem Yazi, and I'm also a final year psychology student in Canadian University, Dubai.
Bushra, go ahead.
Sure. Okay. So we wanted to kind of give you a preview of how we're approaching this. Our idea is not just to give you bullet points of this is what you do, this is where you go, these are the forms you put together. That's an important part of the information you need to make the next step. But we also want to take a step back and give you a big picture view of our stories as individuals. What thought process did we go through before we selected a major or university? How did we decide where we want to study? How did we decide what resources are, okay, sorry. What are the resources we can use to apply? What about entrance examinations? What about scholarships and tuition assistance? What was the hardest part of the application process? So basically, we want to tell you a story that gives you an idea of how people navigated some of the issues you may be facing right now. But at the same time, we also want to give you information to the best of our ability. We researched after, even after we've applied, it's been a couple of years. So we researched, we made sure that we have the most up-to-date information available. I am going to give a disclaimer here that we've tried our best, but we can say we've covered every application process to the T. So this should be a starting point for you to go and decide what you want to dig deeper into. And inshallah, maybe we can see if we can do more Q&A and conversations about this after this program as well, maybe over email or surveys or something like that. So think of this as a starting point and think of questions you may want to ask, make a note of those as well. And they could be anything about like scholarships and financial aid, or it could be about what the course material is, right? Or it could even be about, how to have certain conversations with family members about certain things. Like we are here to have a full conversation with you. Okay, next slide. And before we begin, something very critical for us to do is brush up on our university admissions vocabulary. In some ways, people say applying for a job is a full-time job. Applying to university is kind of like that. That's where you begin that full-time job of applying to things. So when you're applying to university, it helps to have certain vocabulary with you so you understand what different application processes are asking for. So we're going to do a rapid fire round where I will just say the name of, read out the word that we need to get defined. And our wonderful speakers, one by one, will define them for us. So their name is against, the word that needs to be defined. The first one, prerequisites. Safa.
Right. So prerequisites is a very basic university lingo. It's basically a simple criteria that each course has. So for example, you have to take applied statistics as part of your study plan in the first year. It will maybe have a prerequisite that you should have a minimum of 70% grade in maths in your high school. So if you have a minimum grade of 70%, according to that criteria, you can very well register for that course.
Wonderful. Wow. Okay, so here's for a word I didn't know about, anti-requisites. Adil.
So anti-requisites are basically the exact opposite of a prerequisite. So I'll give an example of some courses at my university. So one of those is statistics and data analysis, and the other is probability and statistics. Now, what happens is that a lot of courses at university cover pretty much the same topic under a different umbrella. So one of the courses might be offered by the science department and the other might be offered by a different department. And if they're anti-requisites, that means that you can only take one of the two courses to fulfill your requirement. Like for my degree, statistics and data analysis is a requirement, but I cannot have statistics and data analysis as one of my courses, as well as probability and statistics, because that's pretty much the same course offered by different schools here at LUMS.
Great, that was very helpful. Entrance exams, Safa again?
Okay, so entrance exams are basically just standardized tests that the university needs as part of your application process. And some of the most common entrance exams required here are IELTS or TOEFL, and some of them also require SATs. Some of them also, in rare cases, require AP entrance exams.
Wonderful. So the next one is for me, scholarships versus financial aid. So the big difference is scholarships is something that's awarded to you mostly because of your academic performance. It could be for some other reason. Maybe you play a sport, or maybe you won a certain award or something like that. And for that reason, you're being given a scholarship. But a scholarship is like a gift from the university to you for some accomplishment that you have. Versus financial aid is a very specific kind of assistance that a college offers you based on it could be need-based. It could ask you some questions about, what your family's monthly income is and so on and so forth, what your expenses are. And then based on that, give you some financial, concessions basically in the scholarships and other fees. Or they might even give you a scholarship as part of your financial aid to help you cover the difference cost that is there. So scholarships and financial aid are two different things. Actually, I've seen this mostly in US universities, which we're not covering this time, we're covering them next time, but I have seen that vocabulary pop up in some local universities, scholarships and financial scholarships pages mostly. So do keep an eye out, because these are two different things that often require different things to actually apply for them. The next one is also by me, tuition fees and other fees. Here's a mistake I really made when I was applying to universities. I thought tuition fees was all there that I have to worry about. Whether I am here, whether I'm abroad, even if I'm living with my parents and I don't have to think about housing fees, there are lots of other fees to consider. There could be books fees, activity fees, lab fees. So keep an eye out for those as well, because they add to the total cost of your education. So when you're looking at the cost of a program, don't just look at the tuition fees, look at it in a very holistic way. So you get a good sense of, what the cost will be in total for you and your family. Next one, credit hours, Adil.
So credit hours are basically like points that you get for taking a course, right? So there are two definitions. Firstly is that most university programs will have a credit hour requirement, saying that for me, it's 130 credit hours that I have to complete. And for each course that I take, that is a part of my degree, I will get either 3 or 4 credit hours. Now with credit hours, there's also another thing that they often correlate with that level of difficulty of what you're doing at university. So at our university, we have a senior project you can do, which is worth double the number of normal credit hours. So for usual courses, you get 4 credit hours, but for that senior project, you might get 8 credit hours, because it is a very lengthy and difficult thing to do. So that's what credit hours basically are. They're basically points for taking courses.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Visas and I-20, can you give us a sense of what they are, Adil?
So I'm pretty sure everyone knows what visas are. They're basically permits that lets you go to the country that you want to study in. And with students and there are countries like the US and the UK, you often have to go through specific visa application process where you have to show a certain amount of financial freedom. You have to show them, you have to freeze a certain amount of money in your bank account before you can get a visa. And that's what this is. You have your countries like the UK that just have student visa as the name of the visa that they're giving out. But each country will have its own name and its own specification, its own requirement for the kind of visa that they give to their students.
That's great. So common application versus UCAS, again, more relevant to say US and UK applications, but just keep in mind that application processes in different places can have different names. So common application is a type of process that's used in the US. It's like a standardized process because they have thousands of universities. So you can, as a student, you can use that one form to apply to multiple universities and provide attachments like your transcripts, letters of recommendation, etc. UCAS is the UK equivalent, but while they may both be university application processes, they require different things. So if you're applying to different places and you're using these types of application forms, please do take a good look way in advance if you can for what they require, because they will have different requirements in different areas of focus. So a semester. Can someone else explain this, please? Anyone? Raise your hand. I'm bored of hearing myself. I think Tahreem can do it. Are you able to unmute, Tahreem? Oh, your mic is having issues? Okay, we'll hand it over to someone else. Aisha, what's a semester?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
I wish I could explain, but unfortunately my university is like an annual system. So we do it based on modules. So I'm sorry, but
I'm actually glad I asked you, because that's great. Now people know there's something called semester, there's modules, there's terms as well. So semester is basically a duration of like one. So basically, like if you're completing a course, the course duration for a course at a university, and it could be 3 months, it could be 4 months. I think 6 months has gone out of date, but maybe it'll be there in some systems. But basically, it's important to understand what a semester is, because it's important to understand how many of those you will need to complete your degree, and also how many courses you can have in a semester that will count towards a degree. So in my university, for my college, for example, we had to take up to 4 courses, mandatory, 3 to 4 courses mandatory to complete the degree. But in some instances, you have to take 5, or in some instances, you have to take more than that. So keep in mind that a semester is a certain duration, and also fees is often charged by semester. So you might get really excited if you see a tuition fee you can afford, and then you realize that actually per semester, so double that up for the year. So watch out for this term when you are, yes, Maha, semester is essentially term. I think semester is a US word and term is a British word, but don't take me as, for granted on that. GPA, Osman.
Okay, so the term GPA, it stands for grade point average. It's a way you will be referring to your grades in university. It's calculated based on your grade points and credit hours of the course. It really doesn't matter due to the fact that universities and many educational institutions use different methods to calculate it. It can sometimes be out of 4.0, 5.0, sometimes even 7.0. So it's nothing to be worried about during your application process.
Great, thanks. But sometimes they ask for a GPA when you're applying as well, right?
I'm not sure. They only ask from transcripts.
Depends on, I guess, which system you're coming from as well. But
yeah.
Sometimes you may have to convert your Pakistani test scores into a GPA as well, but we'll not cover that right now. That's for the next session. Great, thanks, Usman. Thank you all. Wonderful rapid fire. Moving on really quickly. Oh, okay. I think we're ready to hand over to our first speaker now. So the first section of this presentation will focus on applying to universities in the UAE, and then we're going to shift our focus to Pakistan. So over to Ariba, take it away.
Okay, so applying to universities in the UAE, before I really get into it, this is just a disclaimer. I've only done this once, so most of it, while it is based on many application processes, some of this will be just my advice to you for applying to universities. So the first and most important thing is, if you're in grade 11 and planning on going straight to university, or if you're in grade 12, now March is around the right time to take a look at your grades and what they look like and which subjects are interesting you the most. While grades don't matter, they're not the end all be all, it is still important to understand what your strengths are. And then take a look at where you are, if you're completing your O levels, which for me were my IGs, or if you're going into your A levels. Based on that, depending on university to university, you might have to complete a foundation year. So check with that, check with your parents, speak to them, guys. I know sometimes it can be difficult, but it is the best thing that you can do for yourself is to speak to your parents, because it is a commitment, right? So if you're willing to do foundation year to get used to the feel of university, personally, it really did help me right after school. Go ahead and give it a try and apply for foundation or complete your A levels, get a solid idea of what you want to continue in, and go straight to first year. So college fairs, I'm a little bit torn. Sorry. Okay, so I would suggest that you attend college fairs at school, but try not to take them too seriously. They're just there to give you an idea of what your options can be. Most of them, unfortunately, are just a PR stunt to get more students. So if they're too good to be true, that's probably what it is. So take a look at it, look at the courses, look at what universities there are, look at what options you have. Just keep that in your mind when you're looking for universities. And finally, the most important thing is follow your passion. Coming into university, the first year was really difficult, but I did learn that following what you're passionate is what makes university easy and fun. And it's really important to try to incorporate that into what course you're taking. I mean, as you'll see, I took journalism, getting to that in a little bit, but yes, it is very important because this is what you're going to continue to do for at least 3 to 4 years. Okay, next slide. All right, so let's talk about choosing a non-traditional degree like media. In a Pakistani household, it was not easy, and it took a lot of convincing, not just my parents, but myself, that it's going to be worth it. So I think if you are looking to study media, being in the UAE, you're super lucky because it is the perfect place to get a start. You are offered so many things over here, not just traditional media, not just TV or print. There is social media, there is YouTube, there is podcasting, there is radio. There are so many avenues here in the UAE. And if you're interested in media, this is one of the best countries to be in to pursue that. So how did I convince my parents? I did a ton of research. I looked up all the universities in the UAE, mainly Dubai and Sharjah, that offered media, and I wrote down everything that I wanted to speak to my parents about. So, I mean, focusing on my strength, as I mentioned earlier, I was really good at writing. I love news, I love politics, I love sports, and I took that down and I looked at universities that offered a media course. Look at the faculty, guys. The faculty is most important. You know, some universities in the UAE, the reason I rejected them for media was because the faculty was just not what I was looking into. Your professors are super important when you're picking your university. It helps a lot if they have at least some form of experience in the field. As my professors, they're all mostly journalists, and it was really helpful for me to convince my parents to take a look at it. And yeah, so who is teaching it? How much on the field experience can you get? So at Middlesex, where I am, we have been to so many journalistic events. I've been to GITEX, I've been to the Dubai Air Show, I've been to Gulf Food, and I've gotten to speak to so many people that even before I have graduated, I have so many contacts. And yeah, that's all thanks to my professors. So look into who is teaching you guys. It's the most important. And then how does it align with your strengths? You know, if you think you're a good public speaker, look into radio. If you think you're a good writer, look into print journalism. It does not just end at a newspaper, guys. I think that's a big misconception. And that's the reason why a lot of people don't want to take it as a career path, because they think it's not a career. That's not true. In the world that we live in the world of social media and internet, there are so many opportunities that will help you make a strong career. Okay, next slide. So study options in media when you're looking into universities, what course you want to take. There is PR, there is film, there is advertisement, digital media, podcasting, radio, and then the main word, journalism. But even under journalism, everything can be so perfectly tailored to you. So we get offered sports journalism, you get offered fashion journalism, food journalism, conflict reporting. There is also, like, you know, in the time of COVID, the medical side of journalism was super high and in demand. So take a look at the courses which you want to look into. In Middlesex, for at least the first 2 years, you can actually combine two. So I took digital media and journalism, and then I decided that journalism was where most of my strengths were and where I wanted to continue in. And again, it can be tailored to how you want it. So with a degree in media, you can be, these are just some of the few things that I have been told I can be. So content marketer, copywriter, corporate communication specialist, editor, PR specialist, reporter, social media specialist, anchor, podcaster, and radio host. So it doesn't just, you know, it doesn't just bring you down and just it doesn't just confine you to basic journalism. If you study finance as part of your journalism course, whether in undergrad or postgrad, you can go into the financial side of things, you know, be an advisor, be a finance, I don't know the terms, guys, but yes, you can go into bigger companies and help them analyze their financial things. Yeah, so these are just some of the few things that you can do with a degree in media. Again, I do want to really emphasize, in a Desi household, these things are not considered, you know, sorry? Okay, in a Desi household, these things are not considered, you know, to be life-saving. They are, trust me. They offer so much, and the careers of the people that I have followed throughout the years, it starts with just a basic journalism degree and it can go into so much more. You can do so much with it. You know, it doesn't just confine you. And I think media is one of the few degrees which allows you to continue learning and trying new things even after graduation. So go on, Fatma.
I apologize for the interruption, Ariba.
So scholarships in the UAE, I have very specific information about this on Middlesex. Guys, you have to ask. Don't hesitate to ask. If you think that your grades are worth earning a scholarship for, go for it, ask them. There's no reason to be embarrassed. I know I was, when applying for university, I was super embarrassed to ask for a scholarship because I was like, oh, like if I deserved one, they would have given it to me. But then I asked for it. And for 3 years until the pandemic, I was on 30% scholarship at Middlesex, which was incredible. It's such a help. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm so sorry, the slides. I skipped the slide. Do you want me to go back or do you want to continue here?
It's okay. I'll go back after this one.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, so check the university website, see their scholarship programs. Middlesex actually does have a pretty good, for most courses, scholarship program, not just for media, for even computer sciences and other courses as well. They, from what I know and from the people that I've spoken to, you can get between 15 to 35% scholarships. Again, scholarships are only based on grades. So you have to keep up your grades if you want your scholarship every single year. At Middlesex, there are different things for us. In media, our attendance is a big part of our scholarship. If you're not attending classes, unfortunately, you can't get a scholarship. And so coming back to what I said about being in a Desi household, my parents were actually pretty impressed that Middlesex offers scholarships for media, because I guess to them, it meant that it's a proper course at Middlesex. It's not just neglected. So collect all this information, guys. Again, it's not going to be easy, but they are your parents. And once they see that you're passionate about it and see how much research you've put into it, they're willing to give it a chance if you are. Okay, you can go back to the sandwich program. All right, so a sandwich program at Middlesex. And when I was applying for university, I'm pretty sure Harriet Watt used to offer these as well. So a 4-year sandwich course combines an undergraduate degree with a year-long placement in a professional setting. So you're basically working while you are getting your degree. So why this was helpful as someone in media, because it builds you such a strong base before you graduate that you can go directly into working and start working on your career. Again, bringing it back to the parents, it can also calm their nerves that there is a job market for media, whether it's journalism, PR. I know so many kids who started off first year and they were unsure. They were like, oh, it's probably going to be a 1-year thing. But after getting placed in jobs, and it's actually part of your course as well. I know the PR course in Middlesex, they put you, that's like a module that you have where they put you at work and you get to work and you get to experience. So yes, this is super important for people. It can also help in financial aids. So yeah, it's super important if you are unsure whether you can form a career. I mean, you can, trust me, I know, I've been there. So, but yeah, it can help you get a better degree. It can help you get an honors degree because you have in-person experience. You can bring that into your degree and, your work will be amazing. Finding a job right after graduation, I mean, who doesn't want that? After all 4 years, you don't want to have to struggle another year to get a job. And earn money while in your degree. I think that's one of the coolest thing about a sandwich program is that you're funding your own degree, and that sort of fulfillment is what helps you what drives you to get your degree and to get out there. And you know your strengths, your weaknesses, you're polishing them before entering the real world. And that's amazing in a degree. Okay, we can go on. Okay, so there are a few resources. So unfortunately, I don't know what happened, but there are only Middlesex ones here. No bias, guys. Amity has a pretty cool media program as well. So does Wollongong, but I don't want to give you guys something which I haven't looked into for the past 4 years. It has been a while. So Middlesex is here. And you guys, yeah, so I think if we're taking speaker by speaker, I can take questions. Hopefully I can answer them, unless you guys totally stump me. So if anyone has any questions,
Apologies.
Is it possible to mute participants?
I'm not sure. I'm going to look that up right now. But regardless, everybody, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you for starting it off with that. Questions, anyone? Raise your hand, put them in the chat box. I do see
do
questions in the
see
chat
one.
box. Actually.
Yeah, scope of journalism here. So I'm glad you asked about journalism because I'm super good at that. So scope of journalism here is actually pretty international. If you start here, again, speaking from Middlesex perspective, our professors have a lot of connections within the media. We have connections with Gulf News, but we also have international connections. So for speaking for Pakistan, one of my professors, he actually put me to work at Dawn News for a good 6 months. So the scope is, guys, it's massive. I mean, I can't answer this question in like 1 minute windows frame because UAE is such a growing industry. And because, you know, if I look at the past 6 months with Expo over here, there have been so many opportunities where journalists have been treated. I mean, Expo literally has a media center, you guys, and they keep giving you things to cover. You get to see a lot of the world and you get to polish your own skills as well. So, I mean, I don't know if that answers the question as well as I'm intending it to, but yes, you have a lot of opportunities here for sport, for media, for business. As a journalist, you get to cover all of these here in the UAE. And you get pretty good job opportunities as well. I mean, you just have to apply. They're looking for young, refreshing ideas as well. Take your chance. Any other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Can you please tell about the part-time job? Like, can we do with studying?
The sandwich program?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because the people that you are going to be working for, they understand that you are a student. So your working hours and your working burden is set accordingly, especially because you'll always have your professor's support. So if they start to feel like you're being overwhelmed with work, they are going to step in and they are going to speak. It rarely happens where your employer will put you under that kind of pressure. But I think it's also important. I mean, as a third-year student, I decided I won't be working this year. So yeah, that's something that is your professors show a lot of support for, to make sure your grades are your priority, your university is your priority, but you know, if you feel like you're being overburdened, you can always talk to your professors and they're always going to step in and show that support for you, just so, you know, you're not leaving a bad reputation in the industry, because the employers will understand that you're doing your degree and they make it as easy and as manageable as possible for you.
Thanks, Ariba. The sandwich course is actually really interesting. I have a question though. What kind of companies are students placed at for the sandwich course? Do you have an idea?
I think mostly, at least for my professors, it depends on the companies that they're in contact with. So as I said, you know, like they can be bigger firms like Gulf News, but they can also be startups where you get to do a lot of your, you get to bring in a lot of ideas for someone who is just starting out, because they're in need of it as well.
Interesting. What about careers in advertising? Do you think a degree in media can facilitate, like, say, if I want to work in graphics design, or I want to work in copywriting
Absolutely.
at an advertising agency, or I want to be a creative director at an advertising agency eventually?
Yes, absolutely. I remember in IFP when we were studying PR and advertisement, that was a big part of, I unfortunately wasn't interested in it, so I didn't understand why I was doing it. But a lot of my friends who I made from IFP, they shifted to advertising, just advertisement, which has, I think it has a lot of math in it as well. So it was cool.
Thanks, Ariba. Thanks a lot for this wonderful way to kickstart our presentation. So let's move on to the next topic for today. Accounting and finance. So Fatma will be speaking on this.
Hello.
Fatma?
Okay, so basically, first of all, an introduction. I think I already said this, but I'm doing ACCA from PwC's Academy. Not many people know what ACCA is, so I'm going to start with that. ACCA is a professional degree. It's a professional qualification in accounting and finance, okay? And it stands for, a lot of people, actually, to be honest, before I started, I didn't even know what it stood for, because I knew what it was, but a lot of people don't know what it stands for. So it stands for Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. There's two routes that you can go in with ACCA. It's the normal ACCA and it's FIA. So I'm gonna just quickly describe the differences between both. So normal ACCA usually
Oh,
requires.
Fatma, sorry, can I pause you for just a second?
Oh,
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make all the speakers co-host and then mute all participants. If anybody has any questions, it's best that you just put it in the chat box because I believe there's some interruption today that we want to avoid. So just letting everybody, all the speakers know that I'm going to be making you co-host and all the participants are going to be muted throughout the call. And you can just drop your questions in the chat box, or maybe I can change the setting when it's Q&A time. Thanks for understanding, guys. Sorry to interrupt you, Fatma.
no issues. Can I continue? Okay, perfect. So I was telling you guys about the difference between normal ACCA and FIA. Normal ACCA is usually done after you complete your 12 years at school, or for example, if you are an A-level student like me, I had to be able to complete my A-levels and not just year one, which is A1 or AS. So I had to finish my A-levels to join normal ACCA, because when you go to the website, I have linked it in the resources side. When you go to the registration website, they require you to upload your results in, and they require your A-level results. So complete 12 years of education. Whereas if you go through FIA, you can do it after your grade 11 or even after your grade 12, which is AS. And once you go through that route, it's not very different. You just have to register as an FIA student first through the ACCA website. And then as soon as you're completed with your first 3 papers, I'm going to go on to the papers in a bit, but as soon as you're done with your first 3 papers, the system changes to ACCA by itself. Now, when I was talking about, papers, I was coming to papers because there is 13 papers that you have to complete to get your ACCA degree. The first 3 papers are knowledge-based papers, and they're the papers that are classified in FIA. Once you finish these 3 papers, you can move on to ACCA if you've joined the ACCA as a grade 11 student or a grade 12 student. Basically, if you've not completed your school. Then they have the skills papers, which is paper 4 to 9. And then there are strategic professional papers. Now, the strategic professional papers, there are 4 papers, 2 of which are compulsory, and the other 2, you have to choose between 4 options. So there's 4 options, and you can pick 2 papers and attempt them, right? Now, there's different positions that you can get when you are doing ACCA. So you can be either an ACCA student, which is basically you're studying and doing these papers, attempting these papers. You can be an ACCA member, which is when you have finished all of these papers, you've had 3 years of work experience, and you have finished their ethics and professional skills module. And then there's an affiliate, which is where you just finish your 13 papers, you're classified as an ACCA affiliate. Now, after completing 9 papers in ACCA, basically after completing your knowledge and strategic professional papers, you can get a BSc, basically an Oxford Brookes BSc from UK, and you just have to submit a thesis. So what that thesis is, basically you have to submit a research and analysis project, right? You have to complete it and you have to pass it. This is submitted to the university, and once you have completed and passed it, they give you your bachelor's, basically a bachelor's of science in business and accounting. Accounting and finance, right? Another option that you can look into is also after so basically this can be done after your 9 papers, which are your professional papers, knowledge and professional papers. However, if you have completed and you've become an ACCA member, you can look into different options of masters as well that ACCA provides. You'll just have to do 1 or 2 other things, and once you've done those, you will get a master's from different universities. I've linked all those resources in the resources slide. Now, when looking at options on where to do ACCA in the UAE, you can do it from many different places. I'm personally doing it from PwC's Academy, but there's Kaplan, there's Skyline University, and there's many other places that you can do ACCA from in the UAE. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about PwC's Academy. I don't have it on my slide, but I'm just going to give you details because I know how to apply, and I know the registration process, so I'm just going to give you a bit on that. Now, the thing why I chose to go into PwC's academy was the fact that they offer two courses. One is your open batch ACCA, which is basically you take tuitions for the papers and then you attempt the papers. It's based on paper, so you don't have to actually take a proper course. You can choose whatever paper you want to do. You join the classes for the paper and then you attempt the paper. But there's also another option, which is the Young Employable Scholars Program, YES program, which I'm part of. This program is so basically it has restricted access because there's only a few people that they allow to do the program. You have to go through an interview process, and there's only about 15 to 20 students per year that they enroll in this program. This program is a 2-year, 3 months program, which allows you to complete the papers as a schedule. Basically, you're doing them alongside all of the other students. It's a very professional course, and there's an order to do things, not like open batch ACCA, because in open batch ACCA you can opt for any paper that you want to do and do it whenever you like. But the YES program, you have to go with them. You have to go with the paper that they've selected for you. You have to study the paper and attempt the paper. PwC also offers help with creating your research and analysis project for Oxford Brookes, so which is also very good. The expected fee for the whole YES program is about 80K. And for the open batch, it's about 60K, because obviously in the YES program, there are two other things that I forgot to mention. The top students that finish the YES program, that finish the course from the YES, get to have internship opportunities with PwC itself, as well as PwC offers 4 or 5 extra courses alongside ACCA when you've enrolled as their YES student. Yeah. Moving on to bachelor's in accounting and finance. So basically for bachelor's in accounting and finance, I've looked up 4 universities that you guys can go to. These were my options, but I did not apply, as I applied to PwC back in April, even before I finished my year 12. And so I was almost sure that I was going to PwC, but here are the other options. University of Birmingham offers 2 courses. There's a with foundation and without foundation. As you can see, I have a lot of information that you can go through. There are scholarships available for University of Birmingham. Actually, these days, I did look up, they're giving up to 40% scholarships for students. And also these universities that I'm going to talk about, most of these universities provide exemptions for papers for ACC and other courses as well. Exemptions are basically, they're gonna let you skip some papers. So if you look at University of Birmingham, I think, yeah, here, I have it here. They allow you to exempt about up to 7 papers for ACCA. So then you continue after the 7th or 8th paper while you're doing this course. Moving on to Middlesex University. Middlesex University has an international foundations program, and I think Ariba talked about it briefly. Basically, this foundation program has different courses, different majors that you can go into with the foundation itself. It's for a year. You can do it after your GCSEs, IGCSEs, GCSEs, O levels, or even AS. And their requirements, basically, I looked up their requirements. They require at least 5 GCSE O-level subjects, and then the minimum score is C, as well as they do require math for their foundations program. And if you are going through another board like the Pakistani board, then your minimum grade needs to be 60% in your grade 11 or grade 12, whatever you're opting for. And then there is also a BA honors in accounting and finance, which is the course. So basically you can go for foundation 1 year and then go for the BA honors, or if you've completed your A levels, then you can go directly for the BA honors. It's a 3-year course. The expected fee is like 58,000 per year. They also offer exemptions for ACCA, and I did look this up last year. I'm not sure if they do the same this year, but they have more exemptions for ACCA than University of Birmingham has, I think they have 9 or 11 paper exemptions because the course is more in depth, I would say. Moving on to Harriet Watt and AUS. Harriet Watt also has 2 options, with foundation, without foundation. It's almost the same as Middlesex. It does offer exemptions as well, but I'm not sure for how many papers. And but the fee here, I think, is a bit more than the course for Middlesex. The fee for Harriet Watt is about 62,000 per year. And yeah, AUS, yes, AUS offers actually a lot of courses. So basically, their bachelor's in business, bachelor's of science in business administration has 5 different majors that you can go for. You can go for either accounting, you can go for economics, finance, you can also go for management, you can go for management in information technology, you can go for marketing. So yeah, I've linked all of these resources, all of these websites, so you can go check them out. And also I did focus on accounting and finance, but if anyone needs help for universities in the UAE that offer economics or any other courses that are on the commerce business side, I can help you find your university.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, Fatma.
Any
That was
questions?
wonderful. I believe we have enabled questions for hosts and co-hosts. So this could be a good time. If anyone who's a co-host, if any of your speakers receive a relevant question, please let us know. I have a question though, Fatma. First of all, why did you choose ACCA? I don't know if you covered that already, but just to quickly reiterate, why did you choose
I don't
ACCA?
think I covered that. I chose ACCA. Yeah, I'm unmute. Okay. I chose ACCA because first of all, my priority was I wanted to get working, or I wanted to do practical experience. I don't enjoy studying that much, if I'm being honest. So I wanted to get into working as soon as I could. So this course was offered for 2 years. So I do get a bachelor's in 2 years, as well as this professional qualification. And apart from that, I actually really like PwC Academy's course, if I was being honest, because an internship in PwC's Academy is like a really big thing. And they do offer internships through this program. So to be honest, it was more of I wanted to start working again, and I wanted like a quick, also very highly regarded course, I would say.
That's great. And also, what exactly is the difference between getting a bachelor in accounting and finance and getting an ACCA qualification?
Basically, an ACCA is a bit more advanced, I would say, because it's more of a professional degree. And a bachelor's in accounting, as I said, after you complete 9 papers in ACCA, you can get a bachelor's in accounting and finance. Usually people do ACCA after their bachelor's because it's usually a step 2 degree, basically done after your bachelor's, you know, with the exemptions that you've gotten by your bachelor's. But if you do ACCA, you do get your bachelor's with, and also, as I said, after completing ACCA, you can even get your master's if you do submit a few other like requirements that the university has. You can get a lot of easier options into getting your bachelor's and master's.
I have heard of many friends, even from my own batch, who did ACCA and did really well, in really good positions as well. So to people with ACCA, should they only apply to be a chartered accountant, or they qualify for any accounting position? What should they aim for in their career?
They can get into anything, actually, to be honest, because if I go into a bit of details, you can see that ACCA has 13 papers, and the 13 papers look into a lot of stuff. My 4th paper was law. So I did law as well. We look into finance and accounting. So basically, not many people know that there's a difference between finance and accounting, and I didn't know as well. But accounting is more so like T account ledgers, people that get this language, and finance is looking into the risk, uncertainty, and different other factors. So there's like a lot of depth in ACC, and you can go into a lot of different things. And I know many people that go into CFA, which is Chartered Financial Accountant, after doing their ACCA. So yeah, I think there's a lot of options.
Great. I don't know if you also cover scholarships at PwC Academy.
I'm not sure if there are any, but I do have options. So basically, I did get resources from PwC's Academy. I do have the brochures, and I think we were going to make a resources document for these students to have later, and I was going to upload all of these documents on that. PwC Academy also has an open day next weekend. So you guys, if you would want, you can join and you can talk to them personally about their scholarships. But to be honest, if I'm being honest, ACC is a cheaper option in the UAE compared to most of the bachelors, because as I was saying, there is the fees that I was talking about is per year for University of Birmingham, for Harriet Watt, AUS, all of these the fee structures that I was talking about were yearly, whereas ACCA, if I'm talking about the YES program, for me, it's 80K for 2 years. For the whole program, it's 80K. So yeah.
It's actually really good value for money in
Yeah,
many ways.
it is.
People.
Is that it?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Fatma. I don't believe you have any more questions on this so far, but thank you so
Perfect.
much. That was a
That's
really
fine.
thorough presentation. Okay, moving on. Psychology. Safa, take it away. Safa and Tehween.
Hi everyone. So I hope you had a lot of insight into what you can do after you finish your high school. So this is my department that I'd like to discuss about. So the reason why I chose psychology is that I've always been interested in trying to understand why do people do what they do, you know? You can try to understand maybe something happened in the past and you try to understand how it develops into their future, into their adulthood. And it's really interesting, you know, when you try to understand why someone does what they does or do, or why something happens, then you can just satisfy yourself with the knowledge that, oh, because of this theory or because of this experience. And it's really interesting. And it makes people watching a bit more interesting. It is a stalker behavior, but apparently it's also socially acceptable. So the first point I want to discuss is that studying human behavior is never not helpful. So this point is going to overlap with the other points that you can see on the slide. The reason why is because what I've seen so far, the first thing that I want to talk about is also the job opportunities that what I've seen on a lot of job recruiting websites is that they do require psychology, a degree in psychology as a plus point, that if you have a psychology degree or a sociology degree or anthropology, these are just slightly similar majors, but they're basically regarding human behavior. So if you do have an understanding of these main topics, then you are more likely to be recruited for a certain job, let's say in the marketing department or in the human resources department, or even as a teacher. Actually, as a teacher, it's even more beneficial because then you understand how to talk to your students, how to make sure that they're understanding the syllabus content even more. So psychology is a very versatile field. Again, like I said, it has endless job opportunities. Once you study psychology, you can do many other things in terms of specialization. You have things like educational psychology, which is when you make sure that you try to understand that a child or children, how you can make sure that they understand syllabus or content, or to make sure that they're achieving what they're supposed to in terms of their peer development. And then you can also try to understand learning disorders, which is also very interesting. And then you can even have aviation psychology. I didn't know that branch existed until last week. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to dig into that, but I'm just guessing it's something to do with the air in psychology. I don't know. And then you have cognitive psychology, which is trying to understand how the brain works, how the brain is structured, which is personally what I want to look into. So yeah, it's just the list goes on. And while we're on this topic, I also want to say that everyone over here, I'm sure you guys have a pedal bin in your house. So that pedal bin, you can thank an industrial psychologist for that. So the story is actually, I'm not sure if you guys have watched the movie Cheaper by the Dozen. So basically it's based on a true story. This movie I grew up on in my childhood, so I watched it a lot of times. And what happens over here, it's actually inspired by a true story. And the woman in that movie is actually based on the character of this industrial psychologist who actually I have linked in the resources. So if you're interested, you can read more about her. She had 12 kids, and she had to take care of so many kids at the same time. She would have one child in her hand, one child running around her, and she didn't have time to actually pick up the trash and then put in the dustbin by hand. So she decided to be a bit more creative, and then she decided to invent the pedal bin. So there you have it. You have to thank psychologists for a lot of things unknowingly. And then there's also this increasing demand for mental health professionals going on around. You have so much mental health awareness, and it's actually important because the basic medicine journals and medical associations, they have actually decided to redefine health. So when you say health, when you think of the word health, everyone immediately thinks about the physical symptoms. But nowadays, the health is also defined in terms of physical and mental health. So do not ever disregard mental health as just a stigmatized topic. There is actually a lot of scientific basis regarding mental health. So there is a lot of solid data. And lastly, I also want to discuss that there is a difference between psychology and psychiatry. So psychology is kind of like the easier way into trying to understand human behavior, whereas psychiatry is you have to study medicine, 4 years of medicine, and then you get to specialize into psychiatry. Whereas psychology, my co-host Tehreem will talk about the specifications, but it's more simple, and there is less there is less emphasis on the medical knowledge, like trying to understand what each neurotransmitter does, what is the specific medicine that you're supposed to take for that, and how it works. Although you do get a basic sense of that when you study psychology. And again, if you're interested in how all of that works, there's always internet. There's so many free resources, which again, I have linked to the resources page. So yeah, next slide, please. Right. So if you have these following characteristics, then psychology is the perfect career for you. So if you're interested in human behavior and the underlying mental processes, if you're more open-minded in terms of trying to understand why a certain situation works, and if you have less of a black and white perception about why something happens, if you have critical thinking skills, which again, these are all skills that you can develop due to experience, due to time, if you have good problem solving. Now, again, the thing is that with high school, you don't really have a lot of chance to develop these skills. And again, it's also part of your developmental milestones. You're not supposed to develop all these skills immediately. But if you have an interest in developing these skills, then again, you can join psychology. And then if you have effective communication skills, so these are also important. Because in psychology, again, it also depends on university to university, but most of the universities for psychology, they require you to work in teams. So yeah, teamwork, unfortunately, I didn't add that to the list, but that is also very important. And that's also important as basic students, like of any major, because at one point in time, you will be asked to work in teams. You don't know the other person very well, so you have to make sure that you have effective communication and teamwork skills, writing skills, yeah, because you have to write a lot of research papers since the first year. So you can get tired of reading like 5 papers, but yeah, it's part of the whole thing. And then if you need to develop good research skills as well, so you have to understand that you're reading the right papers, you're reading about the right topic, and yeah, and sometimes you can also find yourself in this I don't know how to call it, but I would probably just call it a loophole. So you read a paper about one topic, and then you read another paper, and then you have gone from reading about something about the brain to reading something about political stuff. So again, it also depends on your attention, but it's also on your interest as well. And the one superstition that a lot of people have is that if you study psychology, it's because you don't have to deal with maths. That is where I'd like to stop you, because you do have to deal with statistics. You have to deal with a lot of statistics in your grad project, which is what I have to do with my teammate Tehreem. What you have to do is that you have to get your own data. Yeah, you can administer your skills. Again, you have to refer to your you have to refer to your ethical committee. So you will need statistics in order to identify the trends, oh, this person has this personality, for instance. So because of this, they have this XYZ. It can be, for instance, coping mechanism. I'm just giving away my own grad project at this point. So is it okay if I, is it okay if I read one question in this chat box right now, or? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. So why do you need lack of fear of mathematics? Yeah, so you don't need to fear mathematics because you have to study maths wherever you go. It's very essential. So you just have to make sure you know your basic statistics. And they're going to teach you when you join university, there will be a course where you will have to study applied statistics, and that is going to be the main one. Is it necessary to study medical before opting psychology? No, you don't have to study medicine. So like I told you, psychiatry is the one where you have to study medicine. And then you get to specialize in psychology after you've done your residency and whatnot. But psychology is the easier route into it. So yeah, you can join psychology as soon as you finish high school. Okay, next slide, please. Right. Yeah, so there's a question. So you can do clinical psychology. No, you can do clinical psychology after you study psychology. So there's psychology as a major, and then you get to specialize into it as clinical psychology and many other psychology specializations. So these actually there's a lot more options for studying psychology over here. There's a lot more that have recently opened up in the past year. I have added a resources link at the end, so you can check it out. But these are some of the universities that I was interested in. So, and I did apply to like 3 or 4 of these. There's AUS. AUS is actually one of the top universities, but regarding psychology, unfortunately, I have not heard good reviews. But again, you are allowed to do your own research. Then there's Middlesex University, which I was very interested in. But unfortunately, I was not impressed by the fact that they had 3 years. So again, you have to understand what is satisfactory for you. What are you looking for? Everyone has their own different metrics of trying to understand what they want to do. And then you have Heriot-Watt University. Again, I think they had 3 years of psychology, and I was not kind of impressed. Again, that's just my own personal opinion. And then there's Canadian University, which is where I'm currently chilling at. I don't want to be biased. I'll just say it's okay. It's okay. But if you want to talk more about that, I'm willing to talk to you personally as well, or I can talk about it over here. And then there's UAE University. So UAE University is one of the top psychology faculties in the UAE so far, like really good. They have a lot more facilities, and also New York University, but UAE University is at the top right now. So the thing about these 2 universities, number 5 and number 6, they have really impressive facilities regarding knowledge, increasing your knowledge base, increasing your research skills, trying to support you for internships as well. That's also one of the major things. So yeah, so these are just some of the options. You have a lot more options that I've linked at the end. So yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so this is where my teammate is supposed to join. Tahrim, if you could.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Even though this is more on a general basis, I really do want everybody here to know that you should never really disregard your safe universities. We basically have 3 categories of the universities we choose. So we have our dream university, we have our target university, and we have our safe universities. In terms of psychology, now this is my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. According to my opinion, it's if you choose to pursue psychology, definitely need to go a huge reputation. You can choose a very normal university like I did, studying in CUD. But if you want to pursue psychology further, there's definitely, in most of career paths, you really do need to go for your master's as well. So you can just do your bachelor's in a fine university, even better if it's close to home. I know I choose a university close to home. I'm living with my family right now. But for your master's, that you can put all your focus on your master's and just go. I feel like it's okay if you can just do it here or close to home. So, next slide. Okay, so this is just hard actually for if you want to pursue psychology for bachelor's. The first is you need to share schooling. There's no definite curriculum you're doing, but it's required for you to finish your 12 years. Then equivalency certificate from Ministry of Education. I know because I went very lengthy and through some process this equivalency certificate. So if anybody at any point needs any help, you can definitely contact me, even contact Safa, because I really don't want anybody going through that pain that I went through. So definitely please be free to contact me. Third requirement is that you need to ensure that you've studied a minimum of 6 subjects, which are the following. So you anything in math, but statistics would be good, calculus would be good as well. Then you need to have studied your science. Is most definitely English, then these are arts, and you 70% minimum high school score of 70%, and you have IELTS. I'll just tell mine. I have a 7.5. If it's above 7, it's absolutely great because usually they would test you because when you're going to be in psychology, you're going to be writing a lot of research papers. So, you know, for that, they kind of need to know that you would be pursuing English. So.
Safa, is she done? Because I cannot hear her properly.
Yeah, I think she's done. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Can you go ahead? Continue, please.
Yeah, I'm actually sorry.
I think it's really unfortunate, Tahim, that your mic was cutting a little bit, but I did get the gist of what you were saying mostly. And I think it was very, very impactful, both what you and Safa have shared. I can personally vouch for the fact that psychology is a really quick, fast growing field with potential in many different careers. Like, say you're even working for a business like industrial psychology, business, consumer psych, like there is such a vast scope. AI, like if you want to train data sets, you first want to understand, you want to study human behavior, and then you want to train, data sets to predict that as well. So there is just major scope in this because right now it's kind of like the boom of psychology. Right now there's a lot of research that's deepening our understanding of how the mind and body work. So it's the psychology is having a bit of a moment, and if you are having access to it, we can see Tahreem now as well. That's wonderful.
Working
Thank
now.
you for sharing that, Tahreem. But I have a question for you guys. I don't know if you touched upon it because I missed some parts of this, and I know we're running out of time, so just a few more minutes on this. But what are some reactions you've gotten to people saying, "Oh, you're studying psychology? That's not medicine," or like, or what are you going to treat medical people? So what are some reactions you've gotten? How do you tackle them?
So for me, I'm going to be very straightforward. Psychology wasn't exactly my first choice for bachelor's. I was actually going towards journalism and communications, but that was something my parents didn't exactly want me to do because I think Ariba highlighted it that it's not. I can't use the word, especially even in family, but we still have these stereotypical thoughts. Prospective careers like communication, journalism, and psychology, safe, quote unquote, safe for women. So I'm going to be honest, I didn't really receive a lot of support when I was going for psychology. it was something I really, really got interested in, especially since I some mental health problems. So it's really just, I just wanted to know this is not a good reaction at home, but I'm still fighting and I'm still continuing with psychology. I think this is one of the best decisions I made in my life. It's hard when everybody's almost against you, and since we belong in that society where this thing isn't really accepted, it can become, but you know, if you really like it, then go for it. Don't really listen to anybody. It's your life, it's your choice. If you want to continue with psychology, go ahead, seriously.
Thank you so much, Takreem. Appreciate your honesty. Safa, is there something you want to share as well?
No, not really, but I just wanted to say that yes, I too had some mixed reactions, and I think I just focused on the positive ones. So some of them, I'm sure that you guys will also not the speaker, sorry, the attendees, you guys will also have the same thought. Is it a lucrative field? Yes, it is. It actually is. And ever since COVID happened, clinical psychology has been one of the top earning fields, same kind of level as medicine, like doctor, to be very honest with you. And there's also neuropsychology, which is personally what I'm interested in. And to be very honest with you, there is some news that psychiatry is kind of going down in terms of demand, and there's more psychologists coming up. So you do have a lot of, for example, neurosurgeons who refer to psychologists and clinical psychologists when they want to talk about a case study. They don't really talk to psychiatrists because psychiatrists are just like, okay, you have a problem. All right, here's a medicine for you. And honestly, the medicines, they are going to mess up with your internal system. So sometimes all you need to do is just talk about something to someone and try to reorient your perspective about something. So there you have it. Psychologists are perfect for that field, and that's why you shouldn't be sleeping on this major. It's up and coming, just like Bushra said. And right, I'm so sorry. Before we move on to, I think towards the end of the section, I do want to mention here that if you don't have a minimum, if you don't get a minimum of 70% in your high school grades, it's not the end of your world. You are still very well eligible to approach for registrations and applications for whatever major, but for psychology, I can vouch for that you can go ahead and approach. And there are high chances that you will just get accepted, or they will either put you in an English placement test or a maths placement test or something, just to make sure that, okay, like you are an academic oriented student and you know what you're doing. So here you go, we're just giving you a chance. So yeah, just don't be disheartened if you don't get the grades that you want after high school. There's a million other options to choose from.
Thank you, Safa and Tehreem. That was really, really comprehensive and really well done. Are there any more questions? I believe our hosts must be getting questions if there are any.
I actually do have a question. So someone asked me, what is your advice for those who have trouble communicating or getting anxious during certain circumstances? Should we consider taking the major if we're interested? Okay. Studying psychology does not really require a lot of communication. You just have to make sure that you understand. So communication is not just a one-way process, it's a two-way process. You have to make sure that you are able to get your message across to other people, either in your peer group or to your professor. And you also have to make sure that you understand their message as well, so the reception is good as well. You don't have to talk all the time. You don't have to do that. Again, it depends on the professor and the university requirements as well. And if you are anxious, if you're more interested about why you get anxious, you are more than welcome to actually do some reading up on this about what psychologist perspective is. And if you're interested, you can go ahead and actually make a career out of this to help people who are like-minded. And if you think that you have something really unique to contribute to the field of psychology as someone who maybe suffers from anxiety disorders or something like that, then you are more than welcome to actually join and help in developing research. Actually, there's a lot of demand for research as well. So yeah. There's just one more question. To get into neuropsychology, I need to do BSc in simple psychology or clinical psychology is important. Right, so I'm not sure about that, unfortunately. That's one of the reasons why I joined CUD. Shameless plug, but basically they have a when you do a BSc or a BA psychology, honestly, it doesn't matter if you do BA or BS. It's not so much of a difference. It's just that it's said on the internet that if you do BSc, there's more depth of information regarding science and mathematics, but I personally do believe there's an equally really in-depth kind of information regarding BA as well. So when you do BA, you just get the same amount of information. Again, it also depends on your interest. So no, if you do clinical psychology in your bachelor's level, you're going to reduce your chances. You're going to shrink them a little bit. You're going to get them too narrow. So I would advise you to do a BA or a BSc in just plain psychology. Just do that. And also, I would advise you to not only set your target right ahead, like you're supposed to have goals in your mind regarding what you want your career to look like, but do not just stick to something because life doesn't always go the way that we want. So sometimes you may change your interest into something. Maybe you'll be like, oh, this is a much more lucrative kind of a career. I didn't think about this. So I wouldn't advise you to get too narrowed at your bachelor's level. So yeah.
Again, great answer, Safa. I think we're running short of time now, so let's move on to the next section. If there are any further unanswered questions, I encourage you guys to put them in the feedback form that we're going to share shortly, which is also for your attendance certificates. All right, with that, let's move on to the next section now. So we will be sharing this presentation with everybody who's here after this session as well, so you can look through the resources. All right, now over to Usman to talk about computer science in the UAE.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so whoever wants to make money, you can pay attention now. We start with the common misconception that that computer science is just learning programming or coding. You can become the next maker of Subway surfers and just chill on an island, but that's not really the case. Computer science involves many fields like software engineering, databases, algorithms, and machine learning. But what most of you would probably be looking for is software engineering. But let me tell you that computer science is actually better than software engineering because you have these many different fields that you can go towards and not limited to programming itself. With the certain technologies developing in the current state, such as the metaverse, NFTs, this is a really good field to get into because there are lots of careers you can look towards in the future. Next slide, please. Now, you might have seen that universities also offer computer engineering, and you might wonder, what's the difference? In basic terms, we can differentiate them by saying computer science focuses on hardware as well as software, and computer science focuses mostly on software and goes more in depth to it with maybe a few basic hardware courses, depending on your university. We can also say that computer engineering is basically half of computer science courses and half of electrical engineering courses. You can learn about electric circuits, computer chips, and much more. And as you can see below, these are the second-year courses for computer science and engineering from American University of Sharjah. I've highlighted some of the main differences between them, with electric circuits, for example, electronics being a main key highlight in computer engineering. Now, you might think that you can only be a low-life programmer slave working for Facebook in a corner of an office room, but there are many surprising fields that you can go towards for computer science. You can work with AI, machine learning, databases, data management, graphical programming, and everyone's favorite, mobile development and software development. Fatma, next slide, please. These are the fields that I just mentioned. research fields, database management, and software development. Next slide. Now, when you look in the UAE, you have many great opportunities. You have unis such as University of Birmingham, Dubai, University of Sharjah, American University of Sharjah, which is where I'm currently enrolled. Studying in UAE may be very expensive though, with the cost ranging from 90,000 or 120,000 dirhams per year. But don't let that take you away from applying. Many of these expensive universities offer great scholarships. University of Birmingham offers scholarships up to 40%, while if you're a jump student in the UAE, which many of you know, if you're in UAE, you can easily get up to 30% scholarships. However, they have a super high requirements such as A grade in math A levels and other two A level subjects with the grades 3 A's or 1 A and 2 B's. At AUS, it's a bit more easier. It costs 90,000 a year, I believe. Yeah, it was 90,000 a year. But the thing is, you can get great scholarships. 2/3 of AU students get scholarships up to 50%. I got only 20% because not that smart. Okay. But inshallah, I hope you guys can get a high scholarship in any universities you're applying to. Now we can look at the requirements I faced when applying to AUS. I studied in West Green, which is a UAE school, so I followed the British board. You need 5 IGCSEs or O levels with an average of B, 2 AS level or A level subjects, also with an average of B. You also need to make sure you keep your old documents safe, such as your year 10, 11, and 12 final report cards, and get them attested by the local government body. In my case, it was SPEA or Sharjah Private Education Authority. If your report cards were issued in Pakistan, I believe you may need to get them attested by the UAE embassy, but you can just ask your university and they'll give you all the information you need. You also need equivalency certificate for studying anywhere in the UAE, which proves that you have completed 12 years of education. The certificate is issued by the UAE Ministry of Education. It's a complicated process, but unis here are very lenient when it comes to getting your equivalency issued. For students doing Pakistani boards, I don't have much information on it, but the US listed that you need a minimum average of 60% in your 12th standard certificate, or just 60% above in your best 2 years. And in AUS, computer science falls under the College of Engineering in AUS. You'll need 2 placement tests when applying to AUS, which are math for engineers and physics. Math for engineers is a subject that you have to take throughout your courses. You will need Math 101, which is calculus, and Math 103, which is calculus 2. These are one of the many basic courses you have to take in computer science. You also need to take science courses, which you can choose from chemistry, physics, or bio. And you also need a physics placement test in your placement test thingy. I don't know what it's called. Requirements, yeah. And if you go to the next slide, these are the resources that we have. You can also contact me personally. I've attached my email here, and I'll take any questions now.
Bushra, do you have
Networking,
any?
I have a question from Hassan Raza. Networking, does networking come in CS? Networking comes in CS and CE, both of them. Any more questions?
Are there any more questions?
I got a question from Kola. What do you mean by best 2 years?
That's the requirement from AUS, A best 2 years in Pakistani boards. That's what they said on their website. But you can just contact them when you're applying for the specific requirements you need, such as attestations or anything related to that. Is IT preferred more of graphic designing? Could you elaborate, Mumtaz?
I wonder if there's a misconception that you learn graphics design in a computer science course, and those are 2 different things.
Graphic design is basically art, you could say, on computers, that you're designing art on computers. What I mentioned was graphical programming, which is you can use in games, graphically programming games. That's what I meant, not by graphic designing like art.
Usman, I have a question for you. So now there are so many boot camps to teach you coding and to teach you this and that, and there's data analysis as well. Why would you go for a 4-year bachelor's degree as opposed to a boot camp to launch your career, say, with a startup or something like that?
Well, first of all, boot camps don't offer the complete scope of computer science. As I said, computer science also revolves around AI, machine learning, networking, programming, which is just one of the things that you learn in the boot camp. And for work, most of them require bachelor's degrees, such as Meta. If you're going for internships, you need to be a student at a university.
Okay, I got 2 more questions as well. One is, what is the duration of computer science programs? I'm guessing they're all 4-year bachelor's degrees as typical.
Yeah, 4
And
years.
the second one is, could you tell us more about foundation year for computer science degrees?
Foundation year, it's called in the US, it's called a foundation bridge program. It's when you've completed less than 12 years of education and you'll be learning basic skills such as math, English in your foundation year at AUS, and some basic courses of your major sometimes. I have a few questions from the chat. Is IT more popular as a field or graphic designing? I'd say IT. Do you mean by IT? Do you mean computer science or IT major? I said computer science is better than computer engineering. What made me say that? Did I say that? I mean, they're both really good. Computer engineering is more due to hardware. It's more for hardware and software mixed. You can get into more fields if you're doing computer engineering, I believe, because you're focused on hardware as well as software. But then your main focus, your majoring, your specializing is the word in software. So you'll be getting a higher ranked jobs in software related careers. What's the difference between ICT and computer science? ICT is the study of information, communication, and technology, basic stuff. And computer science goes into the theory of computers, computation, programming, and all that. In ICT, you learn stuff like, oh, this is a printer, OCR, OMR, optical character recognition, and very basic stuff. You can get a career with ICT, but the scope is very limited compared to computer science. What are the percentage required for US universities? Not sure about that. That's for going abroad.
I have a question as well. Are there any fast track options for computer science? I think we talked about boot camps, but you said they're not as comprehensive. Are there any other options as well that are like 3-year programs or accelerated programs that you're aware of?
You can go to other universities such as University of Birmingham. That's a 3-year course with an honors. So you get your bachelor's in 2 years. No, sorry, you won't get your bachelor's in 2 years. You'll complete your courses in 2 years and you have 1 year of honors. Honors is basically completing a group project in 1 year. So that's 3 years basically.
Great, that's a very helpful response.
If you want to be a software engineer, what's better, ICT or computer science? I'd say computer science because you're focused more on software engineering. But you could also go with software engineering majors, but there aren't many in UAE that I'm aware of.
May I ask, what do software engineers do that's different from a typical programming?
Programming is software engineering. That's just another word.
It's just, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, great. If there are no further questions, and again, people can add their questions to the feedback form that we're going to start circulating in a few minutes. So with that, let's, Usman, wonderful job. You've covered a really comprehensive degree really well. And let's move on to the next section then. We have got medicine. All right. So a lot of you, we got quite a few questions in the chat about medicine in the UAE. We will be covering that next Sunday. So please do show up for the session same time next Sunday. And I see we have a question from Ashan. Ashan, could you put it in the chat box, please? Could you send it to me or Usman? Or maybe you could send it to Usman directly and he could address it in the chat box. All right. So let's move on then to The next section, applying to universities in Pakistan. All right, so we've covered a couple of different majors in the UAE. We will be covering a few more next week, next Sunday: law, medicine, architecture, and engineering. But now we're going to focus on, yes, Ghania, engineering will be next week, Sunday, same time. Please do join us again. Now we'll focus on medicine in Pakistan. Aisha, take it away.
Right. So I hope that up till now you guys have had a good session and you guys have had a good insight into what you guys must be doing to apply to universities in the UAE. So I'm here to kind of talk a little bit about medicine in Pakistan. So medicine is quite a popular kind of major that a lot of us Desis want to take up. So, and the medicine in Pakistan is especially very popular. So let me start. So there's about 114 colleges in Pakistan. So all around Pakistan, and they have about roughly 16,500 medical seats every single year. Now, do you want to guess how many students actually apply to get these 16,500 seats? Is there anyone that wants to make like a rough guess, like a random guess?
100,000.
Well, it's a little less than 5 million. Okay, so I'll answer it for you. There are about 68,681 students that gave the test that we have to give to get into a medical school. And about 16,500 of them have been enrolled in a medical college. So as you can kind of guess, competition is very, very high. So which is why, and which makes the process of applying or choosing a university to apply to very important, because what we want to do is that we want to make sure that we know exactly the ones that we're applying to so that we can focus all our energy on them. And so some of the factors that you guys might want to keep in mind while applying to a university in Pakistan is firstly, whether it is a public university or a private university. So whether it is state funded, which means it's a public university, or whether it is a private university. Academics, so who are obviously the faculty. Now, if you have people in your family that have studied from medical colleges in Pakistan, or if you have people, because a lot of like my faculty, my aunts and uncles have been taught by the same professors that are teaching me right now. So faculty, look up their website and see whether you can see some like prominent names. And yeah, that's basically what academics. So basically who your professors are, because academics in medicine is it's not very different. You basically get the same like knowledge everywhere. So it's mostly the people that are giving it to you. So for example, the faculty, etc. So, and then obviously the fee structure. So the public universities in Pakistan have a very, very low fee structure when compared to private universities. And I will be talking a little bit about that further, like along. So you can kind of get like how much the difference between these two are. International accreditation and national ranking. So obviously the only two universities in Pakistan that are internationally accredited are Al Khan University, which is in Karachi, and Shifa Medical College in Islamabad. Otherwise, in terms of national ranking, PMC, which is like the Pakistan Medical Commission, they issue this ranking like every year, and they inspect the medical colleges. So you can go ahead on their website and you can see what rank or what grade the medical college that you're applying to it has. Hospital associated with the college. So obviously, when you're in medicine, the first 3 years the first 2 years, you're going to be just like studying. So that's just like books and the just lectures. But from the 3rd year onwards, you will have clinical rotations. So the university that your hospital is associated with, you will then do clinical rotations in that hospital. So for example, Dow Medical College, the university where I study at, it is associated with Civil Hospital Karachi. It is the most oldest hospital, serving hospital that is in Karachi, and it is pre-independence time. So yeah, and then for example, SMC, which is Sindh Medical College, it is affiliated with Jinnah Hospital. For example, King Edward, which is in Lahore, it is associated with Mayo Hospital and Lady Wellington Hospital. Shifa University in Islamabad is associated with Shifa Hospital. So basically, like obviously, for example, if you're from the city where you're trying to apply to, for example, I'm from Karachi, so I know that Aga Khan University is associated with the Aga Khan Hospital. So I've been to the hospital, so I know the type of like service, this type of healthcare service that they provide. So as a medical student, I would want to basically get enrolled in a university in which I am being taught how to provide that type of like healthcare of that standards. For example, the hospital that my university is associated with, it is civil hospital, and it is a government like funded hospital where people that are they unfortunately cannot afford like some treatments, they come and they get their like they get their like treatments, they get their like surgeries, etc. done. So for example, when I will be doing my medical rotations, inshallah, that is the type of people that I will be dealing with. So that is a really important like thing that you might want to keep in mind. Facilities in the universities. So obviously, private universities, they due to them being like not state funded, and due to them having charging a very high fees from their students, they actually offer much better facilities and much better extracurriculars than public universities, which include sports and literature, drama, etc. For example, Aga Khan has a sports and recreation center, which is like of like it's like of international standards. So that is obviously a plus point. However, if you want to apply into a public college, so for example, the one that I go to is Dow Medical College, the type of extracurriculars that are offered usually in public colleges, they're mostly philanthropic in nature. So for example, they will be for example, for people that have thalassemia or for people that are suffering with hepatitis, etc., their extracurriculars will basically be kind of spreading awareness about these type of things, etc. So more towards the philanthropic side for public, and for private there's like a very like large variety of extracurriculars that you might get. And lastly, the prestige of the university. So being Desis, this is a huge factor that comes into mind, especially for parents, because they would want their kid to go into a very prestigious university, because obviously we represent our parents. But I would highly suggest you not to think too much about that. Usually in Pakistan, there is this misconception that people or that students that are very smart or students that get high grades, they go into public universities, and students that are not, they go into private universities. That is not true at all. Please look into the university itself, the program, the hospital that they're affiliated with, its ranking, etc. before making that decision. Don't just go into a public university just because you know that its prestige will be higher. Make sure that you look at it, make sure that there's more towards it rather than just prestige, because medicine is a huge commitment. You're spending 6 years of your life, no, actually 5 years of your life, in the 6th year in the hospital. So you don't want to just get into something just for the prestige of it. I know it sounds very like it sounds very easy to go into something that's more prestigious than the other, but please choose wisely, and please take like the things that I've mentioned. Please take these in mind. Another small thing that I want to add for the hospital, obviously public hospitals, they don't have that many, like they don't have that wide range of like facilities, new and like modern facilities to offer. So you might not be that well familiarized with them if you're in a public university rather than in a private university. So yeah, Fatma, if you can please go ahead. Okay, so something that so I have studied in West Green International School, Sharjah. So I've done my education from Sharjah. And the thing that Pakistani students that have studied outside, the thing that we have to face is that we're Pakistani because obviously we have a Pakistani passport, but unfortunately we are placed as overseas Pakistani students, right? So according to PMC, which is like the Pakistan Medical Commission, overseas Pakistani students are not to be charged with foreign fees. So we were not supposed to be charged with fees in dollars or the same fees that foreign nationals have to give. However, in the province of Sindh, so if you want to apply into Karachi or Hyderabad, etc., then you will have to follow the policies that Sindh government puts out. And their policy states that if your last 2 years of education are from abroad, then you are going to be considered as overseas Pakistani, and you will be having to give the fees that foreign nationals pay. So like it is mentioned here, so overseas Pakistanis, like, which we are going to be considered if we go into universities in Sindh. However, the catch is that if you want to go into universities in Punjab or in KPK or in Balochistan, you are not going to be considered as an overseas Pakistani student. So I know it's a bit confusing, but just keep that in your mind. If you want to go into Sindh, you are an overseas Pakistani. If you want to go elsewhere, then you are just like a normal Pakistani student. So if you are categorized as an overseas Pakistani student, you do have to give the MD-CAT. You have to get if you're doing A levels, you have to get your transcripts equalized, like you have to get the equalization done. You also have to give a kind of like a proof that your parents are working outside, so an employment certificate of your father or your mother, etc. And you apply online through portals, and then you send your like documents to the couriers, obviously. Now coming towards the fee structure. So if you are overseas Pakistani student that is applying in universities in Sindh, you have to give an overwhelming amount of $17,000 for overseas Pakistani students and foreign nationals. And this is for a public university. So for example, if you want to get into like a private university, then I've like kind of made this table beside it, which is for Al Khan University. So this is kind of uh, the amount, the fee structure required for like the top medical college in Pakistan. So you can kind of just check the table like beside here. Otherwise, if you're lucky enough not to be like categorized as an overseas Pakistani student and you're just gonna be going as the normal Pakistani student, then in a public college you have like a fees of about like 80 to 90,000 rupees, which is like per annum, which is way less than a private college, which charges about like 14 to 16 lakhs per annum rupees. So yeah, these regulations for overseas Pakistani students and for people like us that are like have a Pakistani passport, but we've completed our education outside, these keep on changing. So I would suggest that you follow them on Twitter, the PMC on Twitter, and you keep on checking their website. If you could go further. So in general, I just want to like sum up like the steps to apply to a medical college in Pakistan. So the first thing that you have to do is that you have to register with the PMC to give the MD-CAT. Once you get that done, you have to get your documents ready. Please do so in advance. One small thing that you might see here, which is like domicile. Domicile is basically a proof of your residency for a certain area. So for example, I'm from Karachi, so I have a domicile of Karachi. And this is required if you want to get into a public university. So for example, if I'm applying to a public university in Karachi, I have to have a domicile of Karachi. I cannot apply to a public university in Punjab with the domicile of Sindh or Karachi or Balochistan or any other place. So if you are applying as a Pakistani student, please get your domiciles made as well. Thirdly, you have to submit your documents and grades. If you're talking about public universities, then you will have to do so. You will have to wait for their notifications, and you will do that by courier. For private universities, you keep a check on their websites, and they usually open their application process is usually online. You submit your documents and your grades. Then afterwards, you do and public universities, they do not have like separate tests and interviews. They just go with your MDCAT score. But private universities, you do have to give an interview as well. And lastly, you have to wait for the merit list and see where you fall. Next slide, please. So general requirements that I would want to like state are that private universities, they require at least 70 in your FSC or your grade 12 grade, and minimum Bs in A levels. And each private university will form their own have their own criteria. So which some disclose, some don't disclose, but it's usually depending upon your O-level grades or your metric grades, your FSC or your A-level, and your interview as well. And then just one thing here, I'm really sorry, in the third point, it states private universities merit list is based upon aggregate marks. It's actually public. So the universities that you apply, like the government universities that you apply into, the aggregate or the final marks that the merit list is going to be like based upon will be 10% of your O levels or metric, 40% A levels or FSC, and 50% depend upon the MDCAT score. And in terms of extracurriculars, when you give an interview in a private university, it really does matter actually what your extracurriculars are. So keep in mind like NGOs or like clinics where you can volunteer at for medicine. Public universities, on the other hand, they don't really take interviews, so you don't really have to worry about extracurriculars there. If you could go forward, please, Fatima. Now, if I have spoken about the MDCAT like several times in my presentation. So the NMDCAT, which is the National Medical and Dental College Application Test in Pakistan. So how to prepare for it? It is basically every college student that wants to apply into a medical or a dental university must give this test and must pass this test to get an admission. So the minimum passing percentage is 65%. However, there's a catch in this as well. Sindh universities in Sindh, so Karachi, Hyderabad, Sakhar, Larkana, etc., they require 50% to pass. So if you're applying into Sindh, the passing criteria is 50%. If you're applying otherwise, passing criteria is 65%. But please do check out the PMC website to get notifications. So the first step that you should do in order to prepare for the MDCAT is to basically check out their syllabus. The syllabus for this year, the next coming year, is on their website. When you check out the syllabus, you will realize that as an A-level student, you will have lots of things that you have not covered and you will not know. But as an FSC student, there might be a lot of things that you already do know. So identify the gaps in your knowledge and then purchase books or watch videos online basically to kind of cover those gaps. So the books that I would prefer, or I would recommend, are intermediate books from Punjab board and federal board, because that is usually the pattern that they follow for the tests. And lastly, I would 100% recommend you to do practice questions, which are available on the PMC website. And as you go along, so you should know how to answer questions. You should know how to you should know how the paper pattern is basically, and resources that you must follow, or that you must basically take help from to get competitive scores, or MedAngle, which is this website that provides lectures, and it provides it provides past papers and multiple choice questions. The monthly subscription for MedAngle is 200 rupees, so it's not that expensive. Academics, so academies are like tuition centers that you can join. However, this is not I wouldn't recommend this to you as much. I did use an academy, but I wouldn't recommend this to you that much, because it's mostly just self-study that you have to do. Intermediate books from federal board or Punjab board, I would 100% not recommend Sindh board books because they're not helpful at all. And lastly, Steps and KIPS practice books. So Steps and KIPS are academies in Punjab that issue their practice books, and they're very like comprehensive and they're very helpful to answer questions. If Fatma, you could go on the next slide. And resources, I'm sorry, I forgot to add, but it's just basically generally the website for PMC. So you can just go on Google and just type Pakistan Medical Commission, and it's the first thing that comes up. Otherwise, depending on the specific university that you want to apply to, private universities, public, don't go to websites for public universities. They are not updated. They don't have anything for you. You will be notified when they're like admissions open. Their admissions open in like October next year. So like October of 2022, the admissions will be open. But for private universities, check out their specific websites. And yeah, that's it. So I will be open to answering questions. Mira Fatma has asked me which are better, private or government medical universities. Okay, so that is a controversial question. I personally go in a public medical university. So let me give you like the pros and cons. Okay? In public, their facilities are not that great because you are not paying as much as you would in a private university. The facilities are not that great. The extracurriculars, if you're someone that really that really wants to get into extracurriculars, they're not that great. If you're someone that wants to apply into into the US or to the UK, going abroad, people that usually go in public universities, they find it very hard to get like the residencies in the US or get like matches in the UK. So if you want to go abroad, then maybe the private will be like better for you. But I guess, yeah. But however, the reason why I'm so like in love with my university, and the reason why I would the biggest pro of a public university is that you are practicing in a state run hospital, and practicing in a state run hospital really just kind of instills this humanitarian aspect in you. When we visit our hospital, civil hospital, we see we see how hard it is for people in Pakistan that are below the poverty line for them to get healthcare, which for us might be such a basic thing, but unfortunately for them it's as if it's like a luxury. So practicing in a public medical university and practicing in a public hospital, it instills that humanitarian aspect in you, and you are 100% more, the exposure that you get is nowhere in comparison to a private university. So in terms of hospital, the exposure, I guess that is better in a public university, but otherwise, facilities wise, extracurricular wise, degree accreditation worldwide wise, I guess a private one is better. So it's very controversial. Also, the fees differs a lot. So I hope I was able to give you like a comprehensive pro and con list, I guess. What is the minimum percentage you need to get into a medical university? So Hiba, for MDCAT, if you're applying into Sindh, you must get 50% at least. Otherwise, the passing percentage is 65. But for example, your aggregate to get a admission in like a top university, usually the universities in Punjab, they close their merit, so means like the minimum that you have to get is 91, which is quite high. And in Sindh, it is about, I believe, 83. I guess it is about 83. So your minimum percentage for Sindh might be around 83, in Punjab might be around 91, but it keeps changing every year. Are you Miss Amreen's daughter? No, I'm not Miss Amreen's daughter, but she was almost like a mother to me in school. And yeah, those are the questions that I've gotten. So
Thank you so much, Aisha. That was very comprehensive. We will be sharing the presentation. We will also be putting this up on YouTube. Guys, I've also shared a feedback and attendance form in the chat box. So please fill it out if you want your attendance certificate, to offer your feedback, share any questions you may have, and even share a testimonial with us. All right. So Aisha, again, thank you so much. I know we're running short of time, so I'm going to quickly hand over to Adil and Omar, who've been patiently waiting their turn. All right, over to you guys.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Adil. I am obviously doing my BSc honors degree from LUMS, which is a university in Lahore, for those of you that don't know. So first things first, I am doing economics, which means most of you think that I am part of the business school. So that is not the case. It is economics. It's a degree that can go under both. Some universities offer it under their business school, some offer it under their School of Humanities and Social Sciences, like LUMS does. So when you're looking up the degree, make sure you look up the overall sort of list of courses, so you can find degrees like economics and accounting and finance and whatnot. So that was the first thing I wanted to clear right off the bat. Next thing was that a lot of people seem to think that LUMS is some sort of super exclusive or super, high-end university that is almost impossible to get into. That is not the case. It's just like any other high-ranked university. Obviously, it is tough to get into. There are limited number of seats. There's a very, very high level of competition. And there is a small chance that you will not get in, despite having a very good profile, because other people in your applicant pool might simply have a better overall profile. So what do I mean by an overall profile? So the first thing that people think of when they're applying to university is their grades. So as mentioned by, I think, Ariba as well, and Tahreem, and maybe even Fatma, that grades are not the end all be all. So please do not lose hope that if you don't have 97% in your FSC and then you can't get in. That's not the case. What matters in most college applications is your overall profile. So what that means is, what were your grades in college prep courses? So this is a slide that I made for American curriculum students. So I was just sharing it here as well. So what this means is that a lot of American curriculum schools offer college preparation courses like Calculus 2 and advanced level courses that help you, settle into college a lot better. So your grades in those courses matter. But the equivalent for you guys would be your FSC grades, your A-level grades, and your metric grades and your IGCSE grades. That's the non-American equivalent of this. The next thing is admission test scores. So for LUMS, depending on your major, you have to give different exams. So if you are going into the School of Business or the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, you just have to give the SAT, the SAT 1. And what that means is that there are 3 sections in the SAT. We'll be getting to that afterwards, but there are 3 sections: English, math, and there's the comprehension side as well. But I don't think that's compulsory anymore. But please look into your own university's website for that matter. If you want to give the written exam or the comprehension exam or the composition exam, then that is dependent on you. But just make sure that you have done your research, because some universities have that as a compulsory requirement, while others do not. Right. Next thing is strength of curriculum, and then grades in all courses. Again, this sort of comes under the same thing. What matters a lot more than your grade in just one course is your overall grade. So if you're applying to LUMS and you're applying for accounting and business, accounting and finance, let's say, and your grades are A-star in accounting, A-star in math, and a D in physics, that's going to be damaging to your profile, because that means that you are not as well-rounded as someone with, let's say, 3 A's, right? So that is something you have to be very, very careful about. Just because you're not applying to a physics field does not mean you completely ignore your physics course, right? And that's just an example that I'm giving. So please make sure that your grades are well-rounded, okay? If there is a huge difference between the grades that are relevant and the grades that are quote-unquote not relevant, then that means that you won't be able to do very well in university. Because at a university like LUMS, you will often study courses that are very, very different to your main stream, right? Like I have studied courses in anthropology. I have studied courses in math. I'm trying to take courses in business communication and organizational behavior. So that's not directly linked to economics, but I'm still studying that. And what universities look for are students that will do well in all their courses, and not just their main ikke dukke courses, like 1-2 courses that are relevant to their degree. Fatma, can you go to the next slide, please? So how did I choose my degree? Why did I go for economics? So the reason why I went for economics is because it was a subject that I actually enjoyed. This was something that was said in almost all the presentations that have happened so far. Please just sit down, have a chat with yourself, sit down in front of a mirror and understand that if you are going into a university, it is a 4-year long or at least a 3-year long commitment. And make sure that you are studying something that you will enjoy. Obviously, you can have changes, you can find new interests, but based on the knowledge that you have in your grade 11 or grade 12 self, make sure you're choosing a career that is actually beneficial for you, right? So my dad is an engineer. He did his civil engineering from UAE Texla and then masters as well from UAE Texla. So it was sort of a given for me. In most cases, what happens is father's an engineer, son's an engineer. Father's a doctor, son is also a doctor. So I wanted to go away from that because I did not like math and I did not like physics, and chemistry was something I just did not get. My grades were fine in those. I had A's in IGCSE and I think I got a B in AS level physics. But the grades were fine. That was not the issue. The issue was just that I did not see myself doing engineering. You couldn't pay me to do it, basically. So I thought, okay, what do I enjoy? I enjoyed business-related subjects. I enjoyed studying psychology on my own. I enjoyed economics. After that, I narrowed it down and I was like, okay, let's just go for economics because that was the major that made the most sense to me at that point. And that's how I would actually advise you guys to think about the future as well. Don't just think about your interest, or don't just think about, okay, where is the best scope for someone like me. You have to think about where am I gonna fit in, and that depends on quite a few things. It depends on your personality, your grades. It depends on your understanding of the world around you. Even because if you despise math, you cannot stand it, then maybe don't go for economics, or maybe develop an interest in math first. Or if you are someone that does not enjoy math but can do it nonetheless, as long as it is not attached to something else, then fine, you can go for economics, you can go for accounting and finance. But the key thing is that you must be someone that actually gets math and understands it, because as you go through economics, as you go up, up the hierarchy, of course, and you go into higher level courses, there is a lot of math. And that is something that a lot of people tend to forget. They think it's just a graph here and another graph here, and that's your 4-year degree done. That is not the case. There's a lot of math that's involved, and that is something that I understood quite late. So that is something that I would like to recommend you guys. Again, I'm repeating myself here, but please do your research on the course that you want to do and the degree that you would like to go for. If you like economics at A level or AS level, then sure, go for it. But make sure that it is something that you will actually enjoy and you've done your research about career prospects, about whatnot. And yeah, that was all I had to say on this slide. Can you go to the next one, please? Yeah, so again, what is my major? Now I'll be talking more about why you should take economics. So economics helps you understand the world around you, and it is mainly concerned with choices. So why are people, and it even ties in quite well with fields like psychology, because you will have to understand why people do certain things. And then there's also a mathematical aspect of it, meaning that you are understanding how people work on an individual basis. And then you're also looking at an aggregate, which is where your economy comes in, and where your inflation and your deflation rates and your economic crisis. And a good case study for you, if you're interested in economics, is the 2007-2008 financial crisis that started off in America, but then it affected the entire world. And in fact, a lot of economists are arguing that we're still not fully recovered from that disaster that happened in 2007-2008. So if you read about stuff like that and you enjoy what you're reading, and you like the practical aspect of those things, then I do definitely think that you should go for economics. And then obviously the career options are very, very vast. You can go into the field of data. A lot of people that graduate from economics go into fields like McKinsey. That's like a management consultancy firm. So that's one field you can go to. You can go into banking, insurance. You can go into academia. You can go into research. You can go into think tanks. You can go into all these separate fields that are very, very different from each other. But the one thing that they do have in common is mathematical analysis, data analysis, and understanding how people think. Because in almost all these career options, these are skills that you need to have. And a degree in economics does help you develop those skills. So Omar, if you're here, you can take over from the next slide onwards.
Thank you, Adil. First of all, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Omar. I'm a third year business student at LUMS. Unlike Adil, I'm not in the social sciences school. I'm from the School of Business, SDSB, Suleiman Dawood School of Business School in LUMS. So Adil pretty much covered what thoughts every person that is in econ or business goes through in school. But let me go through it as well. Basically, I was a science student in my O levels, AS and A levels. Throughout, I was like science, science, science. Basically, my not my dream, but my ambition was to become an aeronautical engineer. But then, as you go more into detail in A levels, you start to get, at least I started to get more bored of physics. And then I was like, wait, I also studied business in O levels. Let me look at that. So most people don't even go through that thinking. They just think like, oh, I don't want to do medicine. Let me just do engineering. What do I like better? Biochemistry, physics. Let me just go into that. So don't do that. As Adil said, have a long talk with yourself, sit by yourself, sit with your friends, or sit with someone who's already doing business or econ in their university. So wait, I just lost school of train of thought. So most people think that when you go into this business thing, there's just like four subjects, which is like finance, accounting, management, and econ. It's not that. There's just so much more. There's like marketing, there's HR, there's data science, there's supply chain, there's operations. There's just so much that goes into it. And many people, especially in Pakistan, when you tell them, oh, I'm studying business, and even at LUMS, they just think, oh, that's so much easier compared to medicine or law or even engineering. And then you're like, that's not really the case. There's just so much that goes into econ and business, especially econ. I would say it's much more I would say it's in the the bigger aspect, it's much more impactful to the world. But there's just so much that goes into the business field as well, from the packaging of the product, the design of the product, the thinking of the consumer, the human consumer behavior, and all of that. There's just so much that goes into it. So the vast fields in business, I made went through them, but let me go through that again. There's consultancy, there's research, there's chartered accountancy, advertising, public relations, retail management, hospitality management, bank management, consumer products. So how do you choose between them? Most universities actually don't make you choose them in the first year, or actually even before you had apply to the business school. You sort of choose your specialization when you go into the second year or third year. But what exactly is your thought process when you try to choose this? You look at your interest. If you're specifically interested in the maths department, maybe you want to look at accounting or finance. If you're interested in graphs and charts and all that, maybe data science is it. Maybe if you're like managing people or helping the business, HR may be the thing with you. So there's a lot of different degrees that come with it. Specifically for me, I'm doing my bachelor's of science in management sciences. It's not only business management, HR, marketing, operations, supply chains, sales, all of that comes into that. So you want to look at your interests, you want to look at what your skills are. So you have to go through, you have to do that research about yourself. What am I good at, what do I like, and just choose a degree according to that. Personally, I really like data science and marketing. It's something that really interests me. So I'm doing my specialization in that. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about LUMS. Adil is the expert on social sciences and econ, but I'll just go through the School of Business, Suleiman Dawood School of Business. It is the hardest school to get into when you're talking about LUMS. The average SAT score when you apply for that is around 1350. You want to aim for at least 1300, to be safe, but you never know. Every year the score changes. Last year the average SAT score was around 1300. When I applied 3 years ago, it was around 1320 and all that. So it changes. I remember like when I was talking to a senior, their average SAT score was 1250. So now every year it changes according to the SAT scores. The average O-level grades. I picked this up from the LUMS website, and it says 8 A's, but almost everyone that you talk to at LUMS, when you ask them their O-level grades, they're at like at least 3 A stars, 4 A stars. So you want to aim for at least 3 A stars, at least I would say in maths and one science, you should get an A star if you want to be safe. A levels, LUMS has a strict A level policy that you need to get at least 2 Bs and a C. There's no moving around. You can get a higher grade, but you can get a lower grade. So you want to be careful from that. There's several programs to choose from. So in the School of Business, there's accounting and finance, and then there's management and sciences. So accounting and finance is obviously accounting and finance, and then there's MGS, whether it's HR, supply chain, operations, marketing, retail management, a whole lot of stuff. In the HSS school, which is the social sciences school, there's econ, there's econ Paul, and there's econ maths as well. So there's a lot of things you can go for. If you're really interested in maths, maybe you can try econ and maths. Or if you want to look at the business side, you can go into data analytics and all that. So there's that about LUMS. Next slide, please. So huge worry that comes with applying to LUMS is the tuition part of LUMS. LUMS is one of the most expensive universities in Pakistan, unfortunately, but it does offer scholarships and financial aid. Around 35%, 1 in 3 students in LUMS are supported by the LUMS financial department. There's 3 types of financial aid. There's need-based, there's merit, and there's international student scholarship. So need-based, it depends on your financial status, your dad's job, the salary, the income of the house, where did you study. LUMS is very specific about their financial aid. They go into whole detail. If you're living in Pakistan, they also make visits to your house to see how your house is. If you're living in a fancy 5-bedroom mansion, they won't really give you financial aid, but if the circumstances are appropriate, they will offer it to you. If you really do deserve it, they do give it to you. Then there's the merit scholarship. There's different types of merit scholarships. So first, when you're applying to uni, they look at your AS level grades and your O level grades, and they also look at your extracurriculars. LUMS is very keen on your extracurriculars. So a friend of mine, he had absolutely amazing grades. He had like 4 A stars in A levels, 8 A stars in O levels and all that. And he got offered 100% scholarship in his first year. So he was paying literally nothing for LUMS in his first year. Grades, as Adil said, they're not everything, but they do matter when you're looking at scholarships and financial aid, especially in Pakistan universities, because extracurriculars unfortunately are not given that much of importance here. There's also the international student scholarship, which I don't think many of us here will apply. We will be suitable for. These international student scholarship is for students from India, Bhutan, in Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. There's some continent countries. Pakistan, the thing is, like, in a part, like, unlike medicine, Pakistani students even living outside in the US or UAE, UK, wherever, we do qualify as local students as long as you have a Pakistani passport or a SNIC. You're a local student, and even if you are an international student, you are giving the same tuition fees. If you are from India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, you do qualify for international student scholarship. So do look at that. Again, it depends on your grades and your extracurriculars. So there's that. If anyone has any questions specific to the business field or LUMS, please approach me in the chat box. I'm willing to help as much as I can. Thank you.
Any questions, guys? Please send them into either me, Adil, or Omar. Adil, Omar, do you guys have any in the chat box?
Not yet, but I just wanted to add one more thing. So at LUMS, there are quite a few majors that we did not talk about. There's a law major here. There is also, your computer science majors that are offered by different schools at LUMS. So we have a whole school of science and engineering that is doing quite well in the rankings as well. Obviously, it's a newer school compared to some of the older universities like NAST and whatnot, but it is quite, an interesting school for you guys to choose. And if you guys are going into the field of computer science or engineering, then I would definitely recommend that you guys give it a shot. It is definitely a competitive school to get into. It is a good option nonetheless, but I would still recommend all of this. And outside those majors, we also have majors in anthropology, sociology, and whatnot. And these are majors that you guys should also consider because they are non-mainstream majors, as I would like to say, right? They're not your medicine or math intensive or your engineering related majors. They are their own fields and they are definitely worth considering. And what I like about lumps is the fact that you don't get a major assigned to you the second you enter through the doors. You have the first 1 year if you're a part of the School of Science and Engineering or the School of Business to explore, take whatever courses you want. And then in the second year, in the beginning of the second year, you get to choose a major. But as for the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, you get 2 years. So the first 2 years, you are an undecided major. So you are free to take as many courses from as many different schools as you want, so that you can so that you can actually come up with one decision for what major you want to be. And then at the beginning of your third year, you get to choose a major, and then obviously based on the number of seats and your GPA, you're then given one of your two preferences. So like you're given two preferences. Let's say mine are economics and politics, and the next major is pure economics. So if my GPA is good enough for me to get the first one, then I'll get the first one. If not, then I'll get the second one. Right. So that's how sort of major allocation works here at LUMS.
I had a question, Dil. Is economics mostly based on writing, or is there an aspect? I mean, you all already covered that there is an aspect of math, but is it very heavily based on writing?
Okay, so basically what happens is that in the beginning, there's a lot of, math plus writing. So there's a lot of math that you're doing, and then you're doing a written explanation of the math that you're doing. It goes sort of hand in hand. But as you progress, what happens is that your sort of writing kind of disappears. So it's not as much writing as it is math. So now if I see a theoretical question asking me to explain a theory, I get genuinely very happy that thank God something like that has come up. Because usually what happens is integrate this, differentiate this, derive this, and then, explain this using a graph and whatnot. So in the beginning, there's a very strong balance between math and writing. But then as you go through the higher level courses, your sort of quantity of writing decreases, but the amount of math that you do increases, which is why I did recommend that you guys, buckle up and make sure that you have good math skills before you apply to any econ major.
Right, makes sense. Thank you. Any more questions in any of your chat boxes?
Yeah, I got one question. Is it true that only A-level students go to LUMS? Also, do O-level grades matter? I mean, if you have amazing A-level grades and SAT score. No, it's not necessary that you have to be an A-level student to go to LUMS. There's a lot of students here that, come from the FSC board, the Pakistan Federal Board and all that. So it's, you're not at a disadvantage at all, if you're from the, Pakistan board and all that. It's just that me and Adil were from our, A-level board. So we only have specific knowledge about that. If you want to know more about FSC, you can, ask us. We will be more than happy to get back to you. Also, do O-level grades matter? They do, but not as much as your AS, because those are the grades that you are applying with. You don't have your A-level grades when you're applying to university. You have your AS level grades. Your AS level grades and your SAT score are more important than your O levels. So if you do screw up on your O levels, don't worry that much. I'm pretty sure you can get back from your AS and SAT score. Another thing, it might seem like Adil and I are selling our university, but it's not that. There are two more schools, the law school and the engineering school. The engineering school has literally everything: computer science, biology, chemistry, physics, everything. Law school is obviously law. So do look at that. I think for the law school, you have to do your LSAT, and for the engineering school, you have to do the SAT too, specific to the biochemistry, physics, and all that. Or you can also do the LUMS admission test for engineering.
I think we'll have
your choice, whichever suits you better.
I think we'll have Aswa talking about in session 3, right? Session 2, Aswa will be
Yeah.
going into details about law in LUMS. Okay, let's move on. Okay, I'm gonna start by talking about the MSAT. It's basically a standardized test system, computer-based test system that happens in the UAE. So if you are studying in the UAE, studying at a school in the UAE, then you probably do need to do your MSAT. Many universities require it, and they require a specific grade as well. It's very easy to register. Mostly the school does this process for you. You can talk to your counselor or your school coordinator and they will tell you how to do it. Most schools do the process for you. But for example, if they don't, then you just need your Emirates ID to register. You have to activate your account and then you can just schedule your tests. The compulsory subjects are math, physics, Arabic, and English, and the optional subjects are bio and chemistry. So if I'm being completely honest, and most people here will agree with me, there are 4 compulsory subjects, but not many people do all four compulsory subjects. It really depends on where you're going. I personally did only my Arabic and English because I knew I was going into accounting and finance, even business maybe, but I knew that I wouldn't need the other subjects because I had looked around. But if you're going into medicine, I specifically know that you will probably be required to do all of these subjects for your university in the UAE. And they also require some minimum scores for medicine. For example, I think the minimum score for Ajman University is it's out of 2000, and I think it's 1100 for English. And so, for example, if you are not able to get that score, they just give you an extra course. Most universities don't cancel your offer because of your MSAT score. Most universities just help offer you extra help. Yeah, I think that's about it. I've linked the MSAT website for you guys and the resources. When this PowerPoint will be shared with you, you'll get that.
Okay, so SAT. So I'm going to be talking about SAT 1, and I think Aisha is going to be talking about SAT 2. So with the SAT, what happens is that you have to apply. You have to basically register yourself with College Board, and that's the central body that governs the SAT. They are the ones that make the test. They're the ones that give out a lot of free resources even to their students. So what you want to do is that you want to go to College Board's website, and over there you can register, and then they have different fees based on if you want to report or not, and stuff like that. So who needs the SAT exam? We've mentioned this before. It depends on your university, but a lot of the universities that follow the American curriculum and the American style of doing things would require your SAT test. Universities like LUMS, universities like NYU AD, which is a fantastic university, by the way, would definitely recommend you guys to apply there. Other than that, you have almost every university in America. They do require either the SAT or some sort of equivalent. Then even if your university does not require it, and you're applying to university in, let's say, the UK or the Czech Republic, you can still send them your SAT score so that they can sort of get a better measure of you as a student. Because you have to remember that as an admissions officer, I do not know you. I know what you put down on that paper. So if you are very, very different from whoever you put on that whoever you describe in your application, then that is gonna, that's gonna get caught very easily. So make sure that even you get in your application, you're very, very careful about this sort of stuff. And obviously adding in your SAT score or your SAT subject score will help you get into the college that you want to get into, right? How many times should I take it? It depends on what your goals are. So if you want to go get into a university in America and you aim for those Ivy League universities, which are your Harvard, your MIT, Stanford. Stanford not an Ivy League university, but it is still a very, very highly ranked university. U Chicago, stuff like that, and that is something that you have to be very, very careful about. So you have to get a very, very high SAT score. And if you're applying to a university like LUMS, then you don't really need like a 1450 or 1500 SAT score. 1350 to 1400 is a very, very good SAT score nonetheless. But then again, it depends on your university and your personal goals. But most people take the SAT around 2 to 3 times. How do I prepare? So the best way to prepare is to buy the College Board SAT book, and it has 8 practice tests for you. And make sure that you are timing your test, because in the SAT, your biggest enemy is going to be time. Because especially in the first section for me, so I got 1510 overall in the SAT, but that was my 3rd attempt. I got 1290 first time, 1300 the second, and then 1510 the third. And it was only my 3rd attempt that I properly studied. The first 2, I was like, let's just go for it. We'll see what happens, right? For the 3rd time, I actually got tuitions. I learned how to give the SAT. So it's not about your knowledge, it's about your preparation. Because SAT will be focusing on your techniques, how well you're able to solve a question, and how quickly you're able to do. Because these are the things they will test. They will not ask you difficult mathematical questions. That's what SAT 2 is for. In SAT 1, they're testing your aptitude. They're seeing how well you can think. And the more you practice, the better your score will be. And now, Aisha, you can take over for the SAT 2.
Okay, so for SAT subject tests, I can only actually talk about the science because I took biology, chemistry, and physics. But I believe that the general like test pattern is the same for all of them. So for if you're applying to medical colleges in Pakistan, they are not required. They were up until last year, but from this year onwards, they're not required. However, they are required for some universities in the UAE. So, for example, such as Ras Al Khaimah Medical and Health Science University, and as Dil said, almost all universities in the US, they require an SAT score. So, yeah, basically, so for science, there's 3 SAT subject tests: biology, chemistry, and physics. For biology, you have to choose. So there's 2 like types. So there's biology E and a biology M. So E is like the E is like supposed to be like the E is supposed to be like the ecology, and the M is supposed to be the molecular biology. So generally, you will have 60 questions, which will be just about general biology, and the 20 questions will basically be either based on like molecular biology or ecology. And for chemistry, you have 85 questions, which is just basically supposed to be like recalling and applying the knowledge. Physics, you have 75 questions. So generally, if you are a student that has done their A levels, they will be at a higher advantage because of the general, like the syllabus is usually the same as what we cover in the A levels. And also you have a lot of practice in like multiple choice because A-level science students, they are required to give very tough multiple choice exams. So yeah, but however, even if you're like an FSC student or etc., you can 100% get like the SAT like books basically, which have like the practice tests as well, along with like there's numerous videos online like covering different topics. So I would just recommend that you first just see the whole syllabus, like everything that you have to cover, and then identify the gaps that in your knowledge. So like things that you don't know from your prior A level or your FSC knowledge, and focus on those by watching like videos online. So yeah, and last, like the most important thing, the thing with SATs is that you have to, it's mostly just the way that you give the test that matters more than the amount of knowledge that you have. So beware of testing patterns and negative marking. So in SAT subject tests, for every wrong question you get, you are deducted you have a negative marking of 0.5 mark. Sorry, not 0.5, 0.25 marks. So keep that in mind. And yeah, best of luck.
Okay, so let's talk about IELTS. So the IELTS is the international testing system, and it's designed to help you work, study, or migrate when you to well, not a country in our case, to a British university where English is the native language. So I can't really give you much about IELTS. Like, I can only tell you how to prepare because it depends on your university requirements. Each university requires something different. When I applied to Middlesex after school, I had taken English as first language. And so they had told me the requirements for Middlesex, at least at the time, were that you need a minimum of B in English language in your final, whether it was your IGs or your AS levels, whichever was the last exam that you gave. So yeah, so you would have to do IELTS academic, and you have to prepare for it. As Adil mentioned as well, your preparation is the most important thing. Use the IELTS book guides, look at their website. They have a lot of information, helpful information on there. And now you can even find online exam paper examples. So you can attempt timed tests. They're going to be examples. And you can also find stuff on YouTube that can help you prepare for them. So there are 4 aspects of it: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And you have to practice all of them, guys. Like, especially I feel like listening, when I gave mine for applying to the UK now, I took listening very lightly, and don't do that. Prepare, think of topics, look up topics, what they can potentially ask you, and you can't stop talking because that is a demerit on your thing. So for speaking, that is something I would recommend. Reading, it is like comprehension. It's a little bit different because the text is very complex and the questions seem simple. So attempt comprehension questions as well. Read the question, look at the text, and then when you're reading the text after reading the questions, look through what the answers can be. For writing, again, most important is to time yourself. So, sit down, try to write as quickly as possible, try to write as much as possible, and then listening as well. Time yourself, it's really important. And yeah, practice, practice, practice. And if you do need to rebook, you don't really for universities. Universities are pretty lenient. They don't require a higher band. I think you can get a 7 and you can still get in. But again, it depends on the university you're applying to. Fatma, next slide. Okay, these are the IELTS books that you can use for practicing, or you can just find them online. They're all the same. Okay. So here are the testing options. You can do it on paper or computer. If you're going to do it on computer, guys, there is no autocorrect. It's not like a Word document. If you make a typo, it's going to stay there. So make sure that you increase your typing speed if you're going to do it on computer, and read back. It's really important to read back. So yes, IELTS Academic is what you should look into. These are just some extra ones in case, I don't know, in case someone else was applying for more. And then, yes, so the costs are typically between 800 to 1,300. For what I had applied for, it was 1,200 for one attempt, and it was on computer. So yes, that's it for IELTS, guys. Practice, practice, practice. Don't take it lightly. You have to practice.
Bushra?
Hi guys. Really quick overview of TOEFL. My understanding is TOEFL is becoming a bit out of date and being replaced by other tests, but still many universities accept it worldwide. So I thought it's important to cover it. So TOEFL itself stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. It's run by a company called ETS, which also does the SATs. So it's an American test essentially, but it's used by universities around the world, especially Australia, Canada, New Zealand, US, UK, across Europe and Asia. There are 3 types of TOEFL testing options. The first one, so there's an internet-based TOEFL and there's a paper-based TOEFL. Now, the paper-based TOEFL, as you can imagine, you go through a testing center and the exam is on paper. It's being phased out in many places, as you can understand. It's a bit of a traditional method, but at the same time, it's still being offered in some places. I mean, I think as recent as last year, even AUS was doing that, but I think they've changed their requirements this year. Now MSAT is the focus. But TOEFL IBT is the internet-based one, and there are a couple of different testing centers in the UAE, some Knowledge Village, Academic City, these types of places. Some universities are also TOEFL testing centers, like I think UAE University is also a TOEFL testing center. So why do you take the TOEFL? Just similar to why you take the IELTS. You want to prove your English language proficiency. One quick note, let's move on to the next slide. So first, I'll quickly give you an overview of what the TOEFL involves. Very similar to the IELTS in many aspects, in the sense that there is a reading component, there's a listening component, there's a speaking, and there's a writing component. The reading section is between an hour to an hour and 40 minutes, includes about 3 to 5 passages, which have 12 to 14 questions. Listening section of about 60 to 90 minutes, so an hour to an hour and a half, 6 to 9 passages, 5 to 6 questions in each. And then a speaking section, which lasts 20 minutes. It involves 6 spoken tasks. A writing section, which lasts 15 minutes. It involves 2 tasks, which need completion. So in the internet-based one, you can imagine you do it all on the computer. When I gave my IELTS, I had an in-person spoken test, but when I gave my TOEFL, I remember talking into a computer. But I gave my TOEFL many, many years ago, so it's been a while for me. But I don't see any reason why that would have changed. How do you prepare for the TOEFL? How you prepare for any standardized test? Practice, practice, practice. Really understand how the test is structured, because the structure does not change very often, like very significantly from year to year. Any standardized test, practice is the name of the game, and you have some really good books that you get to practice with the TOEFL as well. However, many of us, especially in the UAE, are going to schools where English is the medium of instruction, and we should use that to our advantage when we're applying to universities and ask them, listen, I'm going to a British school, I'm going to a Pakistani school that's English medium, whatever that might be the case. Tell them, this is my performance in the English the class ask, can you please waive this requirement for me? I remember my university when I was applying in the US waived the requirement for me because I went to a British school, but at the same time, I needed it for my visa. So you may need it, your university may waive it, but you may need it for your visa. So just definitely look at those. Today's session is about UAE and Pakistan, so maybe the visa thing is not that relevant, but just something to keep in mind about the TOEFL generally speaking. All right, so this is a brief overview. Do check it out. There's lots of information about the TOEFL already on the internet. The next slide has some resources from all of us on SAT, MSAT, SAT2, TOEFL, all of that. Guys, when I was prepping for my SATs, my TOEFL, my family could not afford to pay for tutors or to pay for me to go to a tutoring center. Jo kiya, khud se kiya, and it was more than enough. And that's a story I've heard from many of my peers as well. So if you don't feel like you can afford to get tutors for this, and you don't need that, all you need is 2 to 3, I would say you need about, for the SATs, definitely start early and try to take it twice if you can. Adil, I'm sure you covered it really well. I was actually busy in another call when you were going. So just in case you said it previously, just reiterating it. But for the SATs, ideally start prepping a year before you actually, you're going to apply. If you don't have that time, you can even do it in 2 to 3 months. You just need to consistently work every week, at least do 1 practice test every week, right? At least 1. So it's a practice game. That's all it really is. And with that, are we at the end of our session?
Yes,
Okay.
do we have any questions?
Questions, guys?
I had one in the chat, but I did answer it. If other people are concerned, someone asked if the MSAT is an entrance exam. It's not really an entrance exam. It's like a SAT. It's a standardized computer-based exam, but it's only required in universities in the UAE, not anywhere else. It's only required for universities in the UAE. And yeah. Any other questions in anyone's chat box? No.
Well, we have shared an attendance form, and just keeping in mind our speakers, our guests, everybody has been wonderful because you've stayed way beyond 5 p.m. UAE time to be with us. I really, really appreciate that. If you have any more questions, please put them in the attendance form and we'll try our best to get back to you with some answers. Thank you all for staying on the session. I'd like to take a group photo if we can before we conclude. So if you can switch on your camera for this photo, that would be great. If you can give me a thumbs up or any kind of reaction emoji, that would also be great. So at the count of 3, 3, 2, 1, here goes my screenshot. And I'll take another one. Okay. All right, again, to our speakers, thank you guys so much. You have done a phenomenal job. I have been to many of these types of events at this point, and I really, really feel like what you guys have done, considering this is totally voluntary basis, is phenomenal. We will be putting up the Zoom recording on our YouTube and sharing it with schools as well and with everybody who signed up. To all our audience members who stayed this long, thank you again as well. Please do fill out the attendance form. I'm just going to go through the list and make sure that we did everything we need for a wrap up. Oh yes, we have our second session on Wednesday. We'll be talking about Wednesday, 7 p.m. UAE time. I'm gonna say it's gonna go up to 2.5 hours at least, so till 9:30 p.m. UAE time. So bring your dinner with you, and we'll be covering university applications abroad. By abroad, we mean the US, UK, Australia, Canada, Turkey, Germany, and Malaysia. And we have our last session will be next Sunday. A lot of law, engineering, dentistry, architecture in the UAE, mostly in the UAE, I think we'll be covering next on Sunday. But also we'll be inviting all of our speakers, whoever can join us, to join us that day for an open conversation about what university is like and just to dig deeper into the lived experience of it. And with that, I'm going to release you all 45 minutes over expected conclusion time. Thank you guys so much again, and see you on Wednesday and Sunday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.